It's Wednesday evening. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe with Wendy Schindler and Travis Short. Every week, we will interview guests that are experts in various fields of the supernatural, paranormal, unexplained, and esoteric. So sit back and let us take you on a journey to educate, enlighten, and entertain as we broaden your horizons. Now, here's your hosts, Wendy Schindler and Travis Short. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. The views and opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the network, or our sponsors.
Got a head full of spiders and a heart that isn't here. In a room full of lighters, all my demons reappear. Broken cigarettes and bullet holes. One more to the chest and I'm alone. Nothing gets me any higher, and nothing ever will. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Nobody can remember what color eyes are on my face. I'm a freak, I'm a pretender. I never really had a place. Broken cigarettes and bullet holes. One more to the chest till I'm alone. Nothing gets me any higher, and nothing ever will. Tried to stay tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Tell the preacher not to pray. There's no angels where I go. Only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic.
And that was Adam Jensen, the Mystic. Hi, I'm Wendy, and we've got Travis here somewhere of Mystic Moon Cafe.
Travis is here.
Travis
Hello.
is in the building.
I am here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear you.
We're not going to do that again, are we? That was
No.
really a disaster on that one show.
That was horrible. Horrible.
It was horrible, but it was funnier than heck, too.
Well, I did this today because on my morning show, I have my Kevin, my daytime guy, come in at the bottom of the hour, and we do local news and weather. So I went to the trouble to find the news bed that we play. And so he came in, and I introduced him, and then I hit play on the music bed, and of course, it was opened up in an Adobe window, a file playing window, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared. Not the bed itself playing, because I just couldn't turn it off; it just kept playing because I didn't have access to the control panel. Well, this is embarrassing.
Just a little bit.
Just a tad. I am enjoying a new beer tonight.
What are you having?
Sam Adams White Christmas.
Really? Have not heard of that one.
I hadn't either. I've been enjoying Blue Moon, but I wanted something. It's really cold here. We've had really cold weather here in Virginia.
Oh, it's the same here. Absolute same here.
And I wanted something kind of heavy, but I didn't want to go like a Guinness Stout heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a white ale with nutmeg and cinnamon.
Interesting.
It's like if you could thin down eggnog and make it beer, that's what you're drinking.
Oh, gross. I can't even begin to understand why you might want to do that.
I like, as we have pointed out, I don't like sweets. I don't like that sort of thing, but I love eggnog.
Right.
Christmas rolls around. I gotta have me some nog.
Gotta do it.
And actually that's the one time of year that I will indulge and have like a couple pieces of pumpkin pie.
Okay.
So, yep.
Whereas I'm really not a fan of pumpkin pie, so.
See, I like pumpkin pie. I like pecan pie or pecan pie, depending on where you're from in the country.
Hey, I heard it one time on a cruise ship down in the Caribbean, and these ladies were from England, and they pronounced it pecan.
A pecan pie?
A pecan pie.
Huh.
And it was just simply because they had never experienced it here, apparently, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it is, from what I gather, it is an American or a U.S. creation, and it tends to be not Southern. Actually, it was not invented in the South. It was actually invented, I think, in the Northeast.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, I do believe.
Well, pecans are everywhere, though.
They are. Mm-hmm. They are, or pecans. Pecans are everywhere.
Pecans, yeah. Pecans.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pecans.
Oh, it's going to be one of those kind of shows this evening, fellows.
I am so damn tired.
Me too.
I have not had anything to eat, and I am drinking beer. So yeah, it's going to be one of those nights.
I had something to eat and decided to forego the alcoholic beverages because I figured I would be sound asleep somewhere, like right behind me on the bed. It's been a flippin' long day with about 2 hours of sleep last night.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now, see, I got a little bit more sleep than that. I did. I got like 5.5, 6 hours sleep. So, like a whole, like 3 times as much as you. But it's still, and especially now here, it's dark when I leave for work. Literally, I almost was to work this morning before the sun came out. It was still that dark.
The sun never really did come out here in Kansas City. It was cold, gray, misty, icky.
Well, it was that. Yeah, it was that here. But it was pitch black for 3/4 of my drive this morning, and it was like, good God! I remember because I started at the radio station this time of year, and I remember jokingly, I would say that because there were a couple of times after I went to work there that I would go in late because of meetings or doctor's appointments, things like that. And I would actually see what the drive was like because literally most days when I left to get there, it was dark. And when I left to come home, it was dark. So I never saw the drive with any type of light at all. Good times.
I'd like to welcome Carl Albertson into the chat room. I believe that's Carl from KC Paranormal up
Hey, Carl.
County. Yep, Carl, it snowed down here a little bit yesterday, too, or at least it showed it was snowing. Hard to know, though. It was so fine.
We did have snow here Saturday night. Mm-hmm. We had some places got like 1.5 inches. There was about 1 inch where I live.
Oh, wow, okay. We didn't even get a dusting here. It just kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so welcome, Carl. We need to ask Carl if he dropped off a shotgun in Louisville, Kentucky. I know that seems like a very random question, but I get this random phone call on my cell phone.
Okay.
And it's just, it's a Louisville number, so I answer it, and I answer Travis Short because it's my work phone.
Okay.
It's the only phone I have, but I mean it's it's the radio station's phone, but it's the one that I use for everything. But so I answer it, and this guy is like, "Is Carl there?" And I'm like, "No, there's no one by that name here."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Are you sure?" Well, hell yeah, I'm sure. I'm the only person with the phone. He's like, well, he said, I run something, I think copper kettle gun and archery. And he said, Carl dropped off a shotgun to be cleaned, and I got it ready for him. So I was going to have him come by and pick it up.
No, Carl is, he's here in Missouri. And he said that they had enough snow on the ground that you could track a rabbit. So I'm sure he didn't drop off that shotgun because he's out hunting probably.
Well, I'm like, and he gave you this number? He's like, this is the number I got wrote down. I said, well, there's no Carl here, and I didn't write. No.
I get those kind of calls all the time.
See, even Vincent thinks it's funny.
Yes, he does. Scary. All right. Oh, golly. Okay, so my car is all licensed, tagged, up to date. Got the citation for expired tags taken care of, or mostly. Now I just have to pay the court fees, which were more than the fine.
They always are.
Oh my goodness! But and that was all good. I went out and worked out at that one place, and sorry, I got distracted. I was checking my messages. I went out and cleaned that Airbnb out by the racetrack, the NASCAR racetrack, which was why I was speeding along and urging my car to go faster as I was talking to you earlier, Travis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say, listen to you, the citation in air quotes, the citation.
Well,
you got a ticket. You got a ticket.
Well, see, I thought a ticket was something you could just pay online or whatever and be done. But, oh no, a citation. You have to go in. You have to be around the diseased masses, with all of these actual, people in shackles and things hanging out there. Of course, nobody told me I couldn't even have my cell phone in my in my purse because even off. So I had to trek about half a mile back out to my car and then get back in time for court. But then I wasn't there for about 15 minutes, so it worked out well there. Yeah.
See, the cell phone thing varies by jurisdiction in Virginia.
Okay.
So some courthouses you can take them in, some you have to leave them, and it just so you never know, especially with moving violations. If you're in a different county or, a different part of the state, you show up, because I've done the same thing. I've gotten all the way into the courthouse to be told I had to, the phone couldn't come in. So I had to go all the way back out into the parking lot, find my car, put the phone in, then go all the way back. So yeah, I've been there. I feel your pain, sister. Us jailbirds got to stick together.
I didn't go to jail. I got there in time. No warrants were issued. Issued.
I said, damn, time on the inside changed you.
Yeah, I'm so changed. And then I went out and worked in the salt mines, no less, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cleaned, a whole bunch of toilets, and I did get to bring a little bit of food home, though. They left some, I guess, some brownies, some homemade brownies, and some pizza.
Okay, stop. Homemade brownies. Okay, please eat these during the show. I want to see what happens.
No, they had nuts. I gave them to my upstairs compatriots, and they were just messaging to say how good they are.
Oh, I bet they are.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, these are the best brownies
ever.
Wait.
Okay, I
wait.
said they were left in the freezer. It could be that I baked them while I was there and brought them home to sweeten up my compatriots.
See, wait. My hands are so big.
Yep.
They're so big they can touch anything but themselves. Wait, I was wrong. Oh God. Windy brownies. Special windy brownies. I love it. It's awesome.
Travis, you're terrible. I mean, I know that
Dave,
our one
Dave's
listener,
not here,
our one
man.
listener out there he's like a. Shut up, Vincent.
He thinks I'm funny. He knows what's going on.
It's actually rather frightening because that's a ringtone. And it always comes on just at the right time.
I know, it's like time, man. Dave's not here, man. God. Oh, see, this is what happens when I have lack of sleep and no food and alcohol. I'm cracking myself up.
Man. Yeah, I was so nervous that I would not wake up in time, that I would oversleep or hit my alarm, that I got about 2 hours of sleep and still got up a half hour early.
That's just not right. What are you, possessed? Jeez. That's not cool. So, anyway. Oh. So,
yeah, I know, right?
Good show last week.
It was a great show last week.
Nick, we went 3 effing hours. Yeah. Oh, that was a good show, though. Looking forward to having Nick back on. We got a great show lined up tonight, and then we're working on weeks to come. I didn't check the mail, but we probably have that book from Warwick's.
Okay.
Should be here. So that's and then I meant to ask you. We've been talking about guests. Have you gotten to the point where that you are ready to try to book Devin Hunter?
No, I haven't even cracked those books open. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Neither have I. I was hoping one of us was, though, so we could just go ahead and.
Vincent saying "neener, neener, neener."
That's probably Cindy. She's probably listening, going, "Are you guys just going to do the show all by yourself, or are you going to bring me on at any point?" Oh God! I'm just imagining I'm at a Dean Martin roast, and I'm having all kinds of fun.
That's the best way. I heard I listened to a podcast last night it might have actually been actual radio on Hidden Voices down in.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, you know Todd?
I know. I do.
I do
too.
Know
Hidden Voices and Todd. Mm-hmm. Yes.
They had
Todd.
Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say Todd's last name's on the end of my tongue, and I can't.
I believe it's Bates.
Todd. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. They were having a lot of fun. He has a lot of fun with his partner, with his co-host too. So,
Well,
that's
you have
cool.
to.
Absolutely, we do. We tease each other mercilessly, and
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, because you have to have that rapport, and that's something that you can't just create.
No, you really can't. You can't just pull that out of your rear end. It has to be genuine.
It does, and you can pull a lot of things out of your rear end, but that's just not one of them. I wasn't talking about you in particular. I'm just saying in general.
Coder. You want to bite him?
Okay, I'm going to say you're not muted, so I don't know who the hell you're talking to.
I'm talking to the dog, laying there looking at me, who, when I said his name, looked around like, what?
Well, of course he did. Hell, I was looking around. You weren't even calling my name.
Well, I could have said ham bone, and both of you would have responded.
Well, yeah. I'm like, what? What? Say what? What?
Poor dog has the allergies as bad as, well, everybody else around here. And he's driving me nuts with the scratching and itching. And
Oh, yeah. That sucks.
yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it does. It sucks a lot, especially this time of year to get either allergies or the cold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not good. Not good, man.
Or the dry, stuffy nose.
Yes, that's the other bad one. And I've got that. I wake up like every morning.
Right, yeah.
I just want to, just wish I could like cut my nose off and put a new one on.
Bloody
Just kinda-
mucus. Yeah, I think we write a song about that.
I did.
Or a movie. Maybe it was a movie. Would you like to sing it for us, Travis?
No. There's, I really can't bring all of my talents out in one show. I really do have to kind of pace myself.
And then you would be a fellow inmate with me.
Oh, I have spent the night a couple of times. Just saying.
Oh, wow, okay.
Just saying. Yeah. Oh, God.
Damn it, and they wouldn't keep you.
I know. He begged them, no, don't put me back out there. Oh, gosh.
Get out.
Are you sure? What? Are you sure I've served enough time tonight?
Anyway.
Mr.
Well, if
Mr.
you want, what would you like to do now, Travis? You want me to bring Cindy on, or?
Well, let's. We don't. Do we have any guests lined up? I was going to say, guys, I can't remember. I was going to say if we could.
I'm glad you got us back on track because I had completely lost it. I didn't know where we were going.
I was going.
Not so far, but I have talked to several people. There's that nice guy, the parapsychologist from Kansas City,
right.
Mike Nichols, and I was going to get a hold of him. My week just got kind of busy on me, so I had actually thought I would have all day today, and then the Lance called me and said, "Hey, I need you out here to clean the house." And I said, "Okay." Yeah.
He went ham bone, and Wendy went, "What? What?"
I look just like my German shepherds. Ears up.
So, up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, we've got him. I would love to get him on. We're going to try to get Nick back on.
Have you talked to him about that at all yet?
Not yet. Not yet. My week has gotten away from me too. It has been a very crazy, hectic week. Boss Man was in town. Always fun when Boss Man's in town. Always
fun. Those with those little quotation marks. Mm-hmm.
Fun. Yes. Wishing I had some special brownies to get if I ate them, but
right,
I don't.
Right,
so.
Yeah.
But. So yeah, I guess
you don't like sweets.
No, I don't. Pumpkin pie, like we were talking before we came on. This time of year, I will do two types of sweets. I do pumpkin pie, and I'll probably have a piece at Thanksgiving, and I'll have a piece at Christmas.
Okay.
And I do. Well, let me back up. I do enjoy eggnog. We were talking about eggnog. I do enjoy eggnog. Both, soft and hard. The alcohol and non-alcohol. I just like eggnog.
Okay.
But at Christmas time, my mother always would make homemade candy. So I would occasionally indulge. She made like homemade Mounds bars and peppermint patties and chocolate-covered cherries and that sort of thing. So, I would have one of each. But I don't like sweets. They're just not my thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now if it's bread, you want to put me down in front of, like fresh baked bread. Or rolls, or
my goodness,
that.
With fresh creamery butter.
That's my weakness, which is why I don't eat that. I try to do the low carb diet. I drink my carbs. I drink my wine, I drink my beer, I drink my scotch. I drink my martinis, I drink my carbs. But sweets I just don't like. I'm not a fan. Then there your fingers go. It's like machine gun Wendy.
I'm fast.
You are. So
Quick draw, McWindy.
My niece, who will be 20 next year, she's 19 and a half. when she was little, she lived with my parents, her grandparents, and my two sisters. And so my youngest sister, Emily, her aunt, was always on the computer because she was in high school. She was, first year college and all that. And Emily had, she was just lightning fast on the keyboard.
Okay.
And Emma, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my niece Madison just started calling her Buttons. And so that became her nickname. She was Buttons.
Okay. Like red.
So, yeah. But my niece was funny. Red Buttons. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Red Skull. Wait, no, I digressed. I got on the red kick and not the button kick.
White squirrel, white squirrel.
White squirrel, hashtag white squirrel. Yeah, hashtag white squirrel. My bad. So.
Okay, and we're going to have Carl and his team of CC Paranormal, CCP, Caldwell County Paranormal Group. Carl and oh shoot, I'm not going to remember his buddy's name there. They are they're ministers up Caldwell County, Missouri, which is it's pretty much straight up I-35, I believe, from me in Kansas City. They recently went to their cemetery that they keep up now. They took over the maintenance on it and take care of it, and they went on a camp out with Pridemore Paranormal, and apparently they got some good stuff, and the guys are so nice, and they get a lot of really good evidence. So Gary, thanks Carl, so I will Facebook message them after the show, or maybe tomorrow, and talk about dates and
get them on. And I'm working on Palmetto Paranormal out of Charleston, South Carolina, trying to get them on to discuss. And of course, there are, depending on the plurality of how I actually finish that sentence. There are some guests that we are working behind the scenes to book, which will actually be very, very cool when we get them solidified.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be.
We're not going to tell you who, because that would be
too much. Yeah, it's going to be a coup when we get them on.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it'll be a coup.
Woo.
Not a coup d'état, but a coup.
Oh, a cuckoo.
A cuckoo, not a coup d'état. No, not a coup d'état.
Okay. Oh, all right. Now, I'm glad you verified that one for me, because I was thinking coup at the coup d'état.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. And we're not going to go that. We're not going to go, batshit French crazy. We're just going to have a coup, good old fashioned Southern coup. Not that kind of coup. Not like the Ku Klux Klan coup. Different kind of coup altogether.
Okay.
Well, I said a good old-fashioned Southern coup, and then I went, "Well, that could be taken all kinds of ways."
Well, I don't know I don't know what that is.
You don't know what the hell he's talking about.
I don't know. I really don't think he knows. Anyway, yeah,
it was funny. When I
Go ahead.
Yeah, we do. We digress. No, I was going to tell a funny story about when I was a minister and I was preaching one time at a predominantly black church, and I was talking about family and family ties. And growing up in the part of Virginia that I grew up in, the families were still very Scots-Irish, so they were very Walton Fountain. They were very clannish, and very, very Scots-Irish, family against everything else. And sure. I was talking, I was talking about how that, my family, we were very clannish, and then I stopped and realized where I was.
Oh, goodness.
And I just went, not that kind of clan. You got nothing to worry about. Wasn't talking about that.
Oh, the old hoof and mouth disease.
Oh, I had it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
It happens.
Yeah, I hate when those things happen. And it's just like, I didn't mean anything.
I know, it's like,
However, meanwhile, back at the ranch. tonight's
yes.
guest is Cindy McKean.
Please bring her on. Save the show.
She runs KC Astrology and Tarot, and she's a divination kind of a pro at this point, with the stars and the cards and everything else. And I really, really like her. She's so smart. She's so well read, so well rounded. Traveled the whole 9 yards. She was actually in the Lesser Antilles during Hurricane Maria and got hijacked from our last show. Kind of due to no power
right.
and flooding and and all of those things.
She was MIA, KC Tarot.
Yes, she was. Well, I was really worried there for a little bit, but we got her, and she's really excited to come back on with us tonight. And I thought she might tell us a little bit about what happened. And she apparently was doing readings and things. So the whole time, and until they lost all their power and everything, and
right.
But the difference in the energies and just what was going on around her was apparently quite interesting.
That is so cool. And I had forgotten that we had lost track of her for that one show.
Yep.
And then we discovered that she had been in the thick of it, as it were. But I'm glad that she likes coming back on the show. Although that speaks volumes for us, and it may just say she needs better friends if she really wants to hang out with us on a regular basis.
She thought we are a fun dynamic.
Well, that's one way to look at us.
That is one way to look at it, yes. Dynamic what? I don't know, but okay.
But yeah, it is good to have her back on the show.
Yes.
So I think we're gonna bring her on. So I'm assuming we have a song to play while we get her on here.
What would you rather hear? In Chains by Shaman's Harvest, or The Light by Disturbed?
What was, you broke up. What was the one by Disturbed?
The Light.
You know what? Let's do with Chains by Shaman's Harvest, and let's end the show with Light. I think that'd be a nice way going out with KC Tarot. She's very upbeat, very, very positive. So.
All right, here we go. In Chains.
Angel of death and mercy, come and take me from this cage. 'Cause these four walls and iron bars have been witness to the rage of 1,000 broken hearts and chains. Like a cripple without his cane, a king without a crown. The passion that once consumed me has turned to ashes on the ground. All that I've been given, I give it to you. I can't stand here watching you fail to tell the truth. Somebody break these chains wrapped around there's a heart. I don't want you leaving. I'm begging for mercy. Honey, break these chains. Oh, heaven, help me now. Trade the shackle for a ground, and I'm on my way down. Warm the ice that fills my veins, pumping till I'm numb. Lead me out of the darkness where it's so hard to escape from. All that I've been given, I give it to you. I can't stand here watching you fail to tell the truth. Somebody break these chains wrapped around there's a heart. I don't want you leaving. I'm begging for mercy. Honey, break these chains. Oh, heaven, help me now. Trade the shackle for a ground, and I'm on my way down.
2, 1. All right, that was In Chains by Shaman's Harvest, and we do have Cindy on with us, and welcome, Cindy.
Hi, welcome. How are you?
Well, peachy,
Hello, hello.
peachy. A little bit sleepy, but I'm managing. I didn't have the alcoholic beverages, so I'm hanging in pretty good.
Now, like I say, Wendy needs to lay off the sauce and the special brownies. That is the basic understanding that we've come to on the show.
I just baked the brownies. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that.
See, there you go.
See, I was under the impression that you guys were trying to keep warm in the snow with those special brownies with pecans and are there mushrooms in it or something? And
Pecans, yeah.
something about having to shoot rabbits and end up in jail and samurai swords and people calling you. I'm not sure exactly what was going on while I was away.
See, you leave us, you come back, and we have gone to hell in a handbasket. Actually, that's not a bad idea for a name of a show, Wendy. Hell in a Handbasket Radio. That would actually be pretty cool.
I think it would be pretty apt.
Stream of Consciousness Radio. We're all over the dial. I mean, it would work.
The silent lucidity? No, that's being aware and yeah, that won't work.
No. I prefer being less aware of my reality most of the time. try to escapism. I'm all about the escapism. Let's get back into some sense of perceived control.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, come on now. That is a come on. I set that.
That's like a free slave. I mean, you just can't have the two together.
Well, but it sets up the conversation very nicely, don't you think? Because when we start talking about astrology and we talk about tarot readings and things like that, aren't we really talking about our own perception of how we're controlling things and how that we're really not in control at all?
Good point. Touche.
Oh, she speaks French.
Oh my Lord!
We were doing the coup d'état earlier. Now she's doing touche. It'll be great. No.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Of everything in the paranormal world, and this is just for me. I know I'm not speaking for of everything in the paranormal world that I've researched and that I have investigated and that I have experienced. For me, many times dealing with the concept of things being out of my control is one of the hardest for me to grasp because I am a control freak. I am the person who has plan A, plan B, plan C. But I have to do that because of my job. I've done crisis management, public relations, and you can't just get out there and shoot from the hip. And even if it is Carl shotgun that I'm using, I can't just shoot from the hip and do those things. I have to things have to be planned out. And when we open ourselves up to the idea and the understanding that we don't have any control over anything, do we?
Some things, I think, we do. I'd like to think so. What was that called? That perceived deception or something? You were talking
exactly.
about
Perceived control.
Perceived control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perceived control.
I'd like to think we have some control over certain things. I mean, I have control over how much sugar I could put in my tea in the morning.
There you go.
That's true.
It doesn't have control over you. That's good.
That is true. Unless you put too much in, and then the sugar does control you.
That's true.
In my case, I would just, bolus a little insulin through the pump, and it'd all be good.
Oh, boy.
Holy cow. So, I finally saw that you were in the Antilles, actually, not Puerto Rico during Hurricane Maria. Would you like to tell us about that experience at all, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's definitely one of those experiences that once you've been through it, you definitely never really want to be through it again. I mean, there was nothing fun about it. Exciting, yes. Entertaining, that's debatable. Unforgettable, that's definitely, I mean, again, that might be entertaining, depending on how many brownies you might have had during the whole duration,
Exactly
right?
right.
But yeah, it was a very colorful experience, to say the least, and it was pretty impactful. I mean, we had winds that came up to 172 miles per hour go through where we lived, and we were right under the eye of the storm. And what was very interesting about Hurricane Maria, is that it went from a Category 3 to a Category 5 in record short time. Mm-hmm. So I've heard varying reports, but what I know from being there is I was kind of, I was pretty cool, calm, and collected during, leading up to the hurricane. I was still doing readings online via phone, because that's my business. And I remember it being a Category 3, and 30 minutes before the hurricane hit land, it was a Category 4, and right before it hit land, it was Category 5, and I didn't know it went up to Category 5 until, I don't know, 12 hours later or so, like the next day when we all emerged from our homes. Mm-hmm. And it was, I mean, the energy leading up to it was amazing, because the air was ionized. It felt really fresh. I felt pretty sprintly and pretty nimble and pretty active, and the one thing that I did notice that was off were my cats, though, because we brought our 2 cats down there with us. And both of them were very agitated the day before, and especially the day of. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, something's up, because they're very strange, and, but, when you have work to do and you have, you have life going on, sometimes, you just make sure your cats are good, they're eating, they're playing, that's fine. Yep. If they're a little agitated, maybe it's just too much of a hot day, or, the humidity is, not all of us have great days, including cats. Mm-hmm. And, I was able to, while I was doing the readings, I noticed that random information would come into the readings that really had nothing to do with the questions that people are asking me. Almost as if it was kind of getting jumbled up in the ethers with everything else. Mm-hmm. So I would.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
For clarification, what do you mean when you say that things were kind of getting jumbled up coming out of the ether?
So it's kind of like when I do my readings, I don't read people's energy. I just tap into the frequency, their personal frequency. And I kind of look at it like a radio tapping into a frequency in order to get a signal. And everybody has their own specific frequency and signature. And sometimes you ever get into a station and you get a little bit jumbled from another station nearby it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Stations. It was kind of something similar to that, where they would ask about, say, one topic, and it wasn't that I was necessarily getting somebody else's information in there, but it was that I was getting, more information than what was expected from other topics about their lives.
Okay.
So
yeah, that makes sense. Now, can I ask you a follow-up question real quickly?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, again, because this is an area that I don't have a lot of personal experience or experience in general with. So let's say you have 2 people. Do you do personal readings face-to-face?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Occasionally, I do. Yeah.
So let's say you have 2 people sitting across from you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen then just because they're both there? I mean, do you find yourself sometimes kind of getting that, well, in radio we call the bleed over of the signals kind of crossing in the air?
Sometimes I do. I think what really interferes with readings, the biggest number one thing that I say interferes with readings, is how open somebody is to the truth. Okay. And sometimes, say that you're asking me a question about yourself and you ask me to do a reading on it, and it's a little bit too personal and you might not want Wendy to hear it, and she's sitting next to you. Right. So immediately that's going to be a little bit masked. Mm-hmm. And that is not going to come out clearly just simply because you don't want Wendy to hear everything about it.
Right.
So it's not so much that, or say you and Wendy were involved together and, there's something that Wendy doesn't want to hear about you. Sometimes that could go and interfere with the information that comes in for you. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't really...
I could throw up the
it could be
psychic
a little bit of
wall
energy.
and yeah.
Yeah. It's similar to that. It's a little difficult to explain because it goes beyond what we could fathom with what we have with technology.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's been incredibly different sometimes with readings with, like for instance, I was at the psychic fair about a weekend or two ago, and there was one point where all the energies, I felt it all kind of coming in and blending from just the readings and the energy, the flow of things happening where I was not able to actually tap in and effectively connect. So sometimes, yeah, that what you referred to as the bleed over sometimes does occur, but with what was happening during the hurricane, I think it was just opening up other corridors or other areas of a person where it seems like the hurricane might have had the energy to push that information through, or there could have been some kind of, for lack of a better description, some kind of wormhole or,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, do you ever go somewhere and someone says, yeah, well, I don't have the answer. I just work here.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
okay.
it's a little bit like that in the situation when I'm describing how the hurricane affected the readings, where I was like, I was just doing the readings. I really don't know why it was affecting it and how, but it was. So, but I mean, I was telling people that, there was a storm coming my way. I didn't tell them a hurricane because at the point, earlier in the day, it was just a tropical depression.
Right.
And I knew there was going to be something that was going to come and hit us because I had pulled cards a few weeks earlier about it. And, it was interesting what came up, and I'll talk about that in a second. But, yeah, when I got informed that it was indeed a hurricane and it was heading our way dead on, I did tell people we might get cut out. I just want to let you know ahead of time because, unfortunately, a lot of times psychics have a reputation of being charlatans, and especially if you're doing a lot of your readings on phone where they can't meet you, they can't see you, they might feel like they've just been had. So I would just tell them ahead of time, I got to let you know there's a storm and this is what might happen. And I even told some people as it was getting closer and closer, and I was starting to feel it, that, there's some things that have already started to open up. Are you willing to hear that? That's, this is not just the truth about what you're asking. This is random stuff. So, I mean, random things like, Wendy, I don't know how you look like, so obviously I don't mean any offense when I say this, but imagine if, you asked me, do people perceive me as pretty? And I say, well, people perceive you as fat, and that was the kind of stuff that would come through. So
people would be right.
That's what I mean about more, just pretty raw honesty,
Oh, do me. Do me. Insult me. Come on.
I would imagine it becomes sensory overload for you with that much energy pushing that much extra through.
It was okay.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I think when it came down to doing readings, actually, it was a bit more, here's that word again, controlled. Because I was tapped into a certain frequency at times, and I was focused on that. So I wasn't, looking down at battening down the hatches and making sure the shutters were there and, windows fully locked and, cushions in and, what's up with the cats kind of thing. I mean, it actually kind of helped calm me. It actually helped keep everything pretty steady.
Oh, good.
So,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always watch the animals, during any storms coming in, growing up on the ranch with the horses and cows and dogs and everything else. But, they all kind of got a little, we'll call it energized, but sometimes they'd get spooked, and, and you could tell it was if it was going to be bad or if you were going to have a couple sprinkles and you were done.
Yeah, usually I refer to that as arthritis, but...
Yeah, I got that too. Yeah, I got the bad weather shoulder.
Yeah,
and I am allergic to barometric pressure shifts.
Oh, that's... Yeah, for me, changes in temperature. Yeah, I totally get that in the barometer. But... Sorry, Travis, what was that?
No, I was going to say somebody named Wendy is susceptible to barometric changes.
Oh, yeah. I used to start getting the sneezes, and I could be inside of a building somewhere and go, it must be clouding up. And, I did work a guy's type job for quite a while, and the guys would get off. They go, oh, it is not. So they'd go find a window and look out and then give me that wild-eyed look. I really had to temper myself around some of my brother pipe fitters for a while.
I bet.
Mm-hmm.
The man's world.
Yeah.
She ruled it. She ruled the man. She did. She ruled the man's world.
Yeah. Maybe.
Now, and I also want to point out we've been talking about special brownies, and Wendy's occupation was pipe fitter. I just want to point that out. If anybody else can draw a connection there to the illicit use of marijuana.
It took me a while to make that connection. No reason for the delay.
Yeah, I've never ever heard anything like that before.
Just pointing it out.
That wasn't me, but most of my buddies, yeah.
So it was interesting. Like I said, the energy leading up to it, the air was ionized. It was beautiful. It felt uplifting, to be honest with you.
I bet it did.
Now, what?
I said, I bet it did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it was not uplifting like a tornado. I think a hurricane is a lot more oppressive.
Yes. Well, actually, a hurricane is one of the... I've been caught in horrible snowstorm blizzards, and I have been in tornadoes on 1, 2, 3 occasions. A hurricane I've never actually been caught in.
Yeah, well, I really don't wish it upon anybody. Well, there are a few people I could think of, but really, it's really interesting actually, because we were right under the eye of the storm as well, and as the hurricane started hitting, and we had things that started coming, like the winds started coming really strong. So the winds came, the rains were already there. And the winds came after it. It was almost like not the winds from the hurricane, but the winds that were pushed towards us, like waves of winds, because this big mass was coming through, and the air had to make way for it. If that makes any sense.
Do they call that a squall line?
I have no idea. I mean, I haven't. But,
okay.
Yeah, that's
sorry.
Okay. So, but what we noticed was that when it started getting very close, that's when our cats really freaked out. And one just reacted by meowing his head off, but he was frozen in place. And the other one, she was sort of paralyzed and trying to hide somewhere. So, the thing is, they say, forget your pets, grab cover. Otherwise, you're all going to get hurt. But we didn't really have the heart to do that. They're part of our family.
Right.
And... yeah, I grabbed up one cat, my husband grabbed up the other, and we ran into the closet because we started hearing things crash up against our house. And we have these louvered doors, these they're slated to allow air circulation. And we could feel the air coming in like whoosh, whoosh, as it was happening. Which was good, because one of my cats got so nervous he started farting, and it was knocking out the air. Thank goodness. Yeah, I mean, that was... here I was worried about, like, oh my gosh, this is going to blow the door open, yet I want to live with cat farts in a closed closet at the same time. And we had they were quiet, but we had a lot of confusion. And finally, I heard the windows blow out. That's when I got scared, because I realized you hear about these ominous stories with the windows blowing out, and then we hear metal upon metal, and we had a tin roof, so I knew that something was ripping off of our roof. So I got really scared, honestly. I just started kind of shaking, crying, and my husband was pretty cool. He was really as calm could be. And finally, after, I can't remember how long it lasted, but I mean, it lasted a while. And finally, we noticed that the eye of the storm came. And in the movies, they make it out as if, it's this time of calmness and peace and quiet. And, you could go out and kind of, take a breath of fresh air and all this. And it's not like that at all. It's, at least with the Category 5, it wasn't. It was still rather rainy. It was just a little bit less windy. But the biggest thing that we noticed was that our ears popped. And the pressure really was very, very heavy. I mean, it was so pressurized in the eye of the storm. And we were able to get out of the closet and take a look and see some of the damage. And, rain was coming into our house, and I mean, we were already starting to flood. And, it was thick flooding, so there was nothing you could do to really stop it. I mean, it was going to come into the closet. We were just hoping that our floor was not level towards our favor. And finally, we heard this loud sound of like 1,000 freight trains coming towards us. And we realized, like, oh no, that's the other side of the storm. That's the other side of the eye coming towards us. And it felt as if the winds shifted to go in the opposite direction. And we just, it was like, do you ever put popcorn in the microwave and you hear it slowly go pop, 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 and then it goes pop, 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 like that?
Yep, yeah.
Yep.
So it was kind of like that, as we heard things kind of like hitting our house again from another side, and then bam, 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 relentless, like things that were already knocked over from the first part of the storm were getting lifted up again and hitting us from other sides. And it was so tiring and so fatiguing, and so, I mean, because you're stressed and you're worried. And it got to a point after 3 or 4 hours where it started to seem to slow down a bit. When I say slow down, when you're hitting 172 miles, when it finally gets down to like 120 to 100 miles per hour, it seems pretty cool. So we finally got up. We got out of our closet, and we found that luckily our bed was still relatively dry, and we brought our cats on the bed. They stayed with us there, and we kind of just lie through the rest of it. I mean, it's tough to stand for hours for a while. And I think we probably finally did get about an hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep. And I walked out at the break of dawn where we could finally see things, because the storm came at night, which made it even tougher to deal with, because you could not see anything. All the electricity was down. And did you ever hear about the movie The Day After?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it looked like a nuclear bomb had hit us. I mean, everything. One of my neighbors described it like, wow, it looks like someone took a super large lawnmower and went over all the trees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And everything was knocked over. It used to be this super vibrant, lush green, and everything looked brown and dead and empty. We were able to, I didn't know we had a sea view from where we were because it was so lush with greenery. I had no idea about the buildings that were nearby because, the rainforest would, between the houses, I mean, things just spring up in the tropics. Mm-hmm. And, we were able to, to crawl over things and climb through things. And what we discovered is that the little community that we lived in, which was about, I don't know, about 12 houses or so, we got hit hard, but not compared to some of the other places that totally lost their roofs, or their roofs have caved in, or they got very flooded. So we were extremely thankful because we still had our health. We still had, our cat survived it. We survived it. Mm-hmm. And when we got out to the main roads just to survey what was going on and to look for other friends that we met while we were down there, just the devastation, you just look around and you're like, wow, this was aptly named after a woman, because hell hath no fury as a woman scorned. And this was pretty darn devastating.
Well, you can say damn. You can say damn. The only person, I'm just not allowed to cuss. I'm not allowed to cuss.
I have to keep him on a really short leash.
You might have to keep me on a short leash too, because I'm an earthy
It'll
Taurus.
be okay. As long as we don't drop a lot of, really bad words, it'll be okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny too, because we heard, some of the crashing, and finally were able to recognize it the next day when we were able to walk through, like, wood snapping and just hearing, like, the buzz of power lines and seeing the transformers that were down. We had solar panels on our roof, and those were totally ripped off, and that was part of the metal on metal crunching or ripping sound that we heard. Mm-hmm. Most of our roof stayed intact. Some of it ended up having some leaks in it, so when the rain came down, it looked like some kind of bad nightmare, because we had some bats living in our roof, and I guess because of the some of the droppings, we either had the chance, we had the option of being able to seal the bats in the roof in order to solve our bat problem, which was something that we definitely did not want to do. Mm-hmm. Or just live with the fact that we have rats in our roof. So we're like, okay, we'll take these bats and let them we'll deal with it. And with the water going through that and their droppings, it looked like blood coming down the walls.
Oh wow!
Yeah, exactly. It was funny because we finally tried to get some sleep at one point, and we woke up kind of coughing, and we woke up to like seeing this sight, like, this is surreal. We can't really be seeing this.
Right.
And we came to our senses quickly and realized that, thank goodness, this is just water coming in through a contaminated roof.
Oh yeah, that's all.
But we had to stop it from spreading onto the floors, so we had to there's not enough towels for that, so we ended up using some bed sheets and some old pillows in order to try to just block it up from spreading, because there's all sorts of diseases and problems that come from that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And and it was interesting seeing people after a hurricane. I mean, after something so devastating like that, you get to see a lot of true colors. So, you get to see the worst in people, and you get to see some not so savory type of behavior, but you also get to see people that are out there that are looking out for you, looking out for their neighbors, that willing to take care of each other.
The goodness and the community come out.
Exactly.
Along with the other side too, but yeah, I understand what you're saying there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were a little bit lucky in that there was a stream that was running nearby us. Now, the sewage lines had been devastated. Running water was no longer there. No electricity, no internet, no ability to get to radio. Everything. It was just literally almost living in a jungle. But the looting started pretty quickly.
Oh boy, lovely.
Yeah. So they first targeted stores, and they're stealing televisions and electronics and things that I guess they're looking for the future. whenever
right,
they
'cause
could get
they're not gonna
electricity
work
and
right
they get a
now,
roof on
yeah.
their house. Yeah, exactly. And at first we were looking at that like, okay, that's kind of uncool, but at the same time, it's better than then coming after, after people.
Mm-hmm.
And because we live next to a stream, that was a little, the benefit of that is, you're in an island surrounded by salt water, so there's really no drinking water. And if there's no running water from the municipality, then, people tend to get pretty angry pretty quickly. And the stream at least would stave off some of that. But not too long after the hurricane, one of our neighbors got looted. So an attempted looting. Actually, we were able to stave them off, but then it was inevitable that too many would start to come to where you have to be careful. And we were able to get police to come at one point, and the police's advice to us was, if you see a hand go through the window, feel free to chop it off. Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So we set up a community watch where some of us would be awake during certain times, and we'd have a certain, we'd just shout out for each other, or, luckily, many of them had either machetes or cutlasses. And I had a big kitchen knife, so we had porches that we would take these knives or machetes and bang it up against the porch support, which was metal, and it would make a big tinging sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to sleep with the big knife next to me. My husband, being a city boy, he found a piece of wood with a nail through it. He's like, "This is my weapon of choice."
Ooh, a spike.
Basically. Mm-hmm. And another neighbor of ours, he was also a big city boy, he got a broomstick and he found some barbed wire, and he just wrapped the barbed wire at the end of the broomstick to make kind of like a makeshift mace, because he wanted something that was longer than a cutlass would be.
Okay.
So we did pretty well with being able to stave off. I mean, we got looted a couple times, but nothing that, they were actually reasonable looters. Like, okay, what do you want? Just don't hurt us. And at one point they were like, "We want the tires from your ATV and the battery." Okay, take it. Just go. So, very particular. And they actually were nice enough to trade out the wheels for us. They gave us bald tires instead of, the brand new tires that we had on ours.
Well, hey, you were still mobile, kind of, then.
Well, they took the
battery.
Wheels are wheels.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
well, but at that point, was the flooding so bad where you could have just used it as a floating device?
Well, luckily the rains didn't last too long, so we were able to somehow dry our houses up with a nice man-sized squeegee. And we just took our baths in the river. We washed our dishes in the river. We washed our clothes in the river. And we had one guy in the community who was good at cooking meals, another guy who was good at grilling. One of the girls was great at collecting the dishes to wash, and sometimes she'd volunteer to wash them and bring them back for us. So as a community, we came together. We came very cohesively. And I think one of the things that was really important that saved us is that we had, and I have to endorse this, we had this great filter. It was a gravity water purifier. So we were able to get water from the river, mm-hmm. and use rainwater whenever we had rainwater and just pour it into our filter. So we provided water for people.
Oh, fantastic.
And, yeah. So now we were not evacuated. This is interesting. We were not evacuated by the U.S. government. We were evacuated by hired mercenaries. My husband, husband and I and two other brave guys decided to hire a fishing boat a little bit earlier to try to evacuate, because the military that was available at the time were taking people. I'm not sure how many people they were taking at a time. I think maybe 2 at most. and you're not allowed to bring your pets. You're only allowed to bring your passport and maybe a laptop, and it was $4,000 a head.
Oh
And-
my gosh.
Yeah. Very expensive. And the situation gets even hairier because they confiscate your passport. So it becomes really tough when you land in another island that's not within United States jurisdiction to get back to America when you don't have your passport, because you have to explain to them that the U.S. military has it and try to reconcile that. So we decided to hire a fishing boat, and when we went out to the docks to get onto the boat, Customs had stopped us and said, sorry, Americans are not allowed to leave. What?
What?
So
Okay.
we were turned away. And later on, we got in, there used to be messengers that would go around, and sometimes we'd meet in a makeshift town hall to get answers and any updates. And by that time, we had already heard, this was, I don't know, 5 or 6 days in, that they already started to murder some of the expatriates, namely the Chinese expatriates, because they were known to have money and not put money in the bank. So you could either look at it that they were being killed for their money, or they defended their money till their death.
Oh my word. Okay.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, it was already an emergency situation, and now it's getting even worse.
That's
And-
almost a hostage situation.
It's you know, it ends up becoming defend yourself till whatever cost you feel is necessary. Lucky it did not escalate for that with us at that point, and our community was kind of off the beaten trail, and we decided to, like I said, we had that neighborhood watch and everything, but so they started kind of escalating some of the efforts to evacuate us, and there were these hired mercenaries available. And Travis, I'm going to let you guess who might be the hired mercenaries.
Who might be the hired mercenaries?
Yeah, think paramilitary. It was Blackwater.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
what I was.
uh-huh.
What was coming out of my mouth was Black River, but yeah, Blackwater from Iraq, and yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's very kind of cool, though.
Yeah, they did a very good job. They were very organized, very efficient. They seemed to be pros at it, like, you've done this before, haven't you? And we got onto a ship first to take us out of the devastation. And in order to get to the ship, because the dock was damaged, we had to take a dinghy. So we took a dinghy to the ship, and it was a Ukrainian ship.
Oh, good lord.
And yeah, as we're on our way from, to the other island, it was about a 12 or 13 hour trip, because it was only going 5 knots an hour.
It wasn't a 3-hour tour.
That's
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Silicon Island. No ginger there. Yeah. And we
I'm gonna
ended up
behave.
in St. Lucia. So,
okay.
you had to get processed there. We had to get our animals processed. We had to, confirm that we were alive. Now, during this whole ordeal where, we were still, on the site of devastation, I was able to get access to a satellite phone once, and we were given 50 seconds
Oh my
to talk.
god.
That's kind of arbitrary. 50 seconds.
I guess they wanted it to remain under a minute.
Okay.
And it's funny because it takes about a minute to a minute and a half just to connect, because it has to go all the way up to the satellite, and the satellite
Right.
has to translate it down to whatever call center that then relays it to the phone that you're calling.
Big
And-
State Farm.
I'm a New Yorker, so I could talk really quickly if I have to.
Good.
So we just decided we were going to call the closest people to us. And I had 50 seconds. My husband had 50 seconds. And we both left the phone calls kind of feeling devastated, because all we hear back is, I love you. And I'm just happy you're safe. And we're just kind of shocked, like, oh my God, they're suffering too. So, yeah.
Aw.
So, yeah, so we finally when we were on the Ukrainian ship, there were some rogue signals that I was able to actually send out, some messages out to people, and we get to St. Lucia, and we're told that we have to get to the airport, which is an hour and a half through the rainforest, which sounds really romantic.
Oh,
until you've actually,
I'm thinking bugs, snakes. I have been to the Caribbean a couple of times, so I can kind of visualize the jungle type rainforest you're in.
Yeah, but it was very just windy roads, and it started raining, and it was. You just kind of want to get out of it once you're in it, and you kind of get, the shell shock of, oh no, it's raining really heavy and it's windy. I hope it's not going to happen again. Plus,
there was another one right behind it, though, right?
Yeah, there was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, luckily it didn't hit there, but that was the first point of when we finally met the government officials. So it was like the State Department or the, I can't remember who handles refugee and citizen evacuations. What was cool was that I think there were about 6 of them that came down, and they were able to take over a whole station at the airport and charter planes for us.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So by that point, even though we had to wait, hours and hours and hours until we finally were able to get onto the plane and leave. And we were the last plane, the last evacuation that came out, and we had all the humanitarian people. And we were the last because we had pets, and they said anyone with pets goes last. But by that time, we were all so happy and so just really cheerful. Like, yes, we're finally getting back to home. We landed in Miami International Airport, and I remember getting down on my knees and kissing the ground. So I'm like, yes, I'm finally back home. And we came back to Kansas City, so it was quite an ordeal. But like I said, I look at it and I'm still a little bit shell-shocked, but I'm really grateful that we were able to leave with our health, our lives, and our cats.
And we're happy as well.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Well, okay. There was one question, but then there was another, and I actually remember the other one. Now, we talked to a few different people, and it was postulated that perhaps that the planet X, or Nibiru, had something to do with the aligning of the storms that hit through there, including Maria. What do you think about that, or have you had any thoughts about that at all?
Well, that's an interesting point. I've heard in the past, or I've read about recollections or people's, postulations on how they interpret past records, that the last time Nibiru passed, tens of thousands of years ago, I think that was, that there had been a pole shift and a lot of natural devastations that have occurred, possibly due to a gravitational pull. Mm-hmm. I don't know if what was happening. I remember one of the things I was thinking of was this might be a partial effect of a solar eclipse, but at the same time, we were out of the path of the solar eclipse.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but your idea makes more sense, because with the climate change, it does seem as if some kind of pole shift may have occurred. And, it's not like the planet turns 90 degrees all at once.
Right.
This happens, just like the second hand of a clock, just bit by bit. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, Wendy, have you noticed that the sunsets and the sunrises look different in Kansas City?
I have noticed that, and seen a lot of pictures in the surrounding areas of people who are up each morning with the sun, and then kind of looking out over the sunsets. And they're it seems like they're much more colorful. I don't know faster? Is the sun sinking faster, perhaps? Or I'm not sure I can put it into words because I haven't really studied it. I've just kind of noticed there were differences.
I've noticed there were differences since 2014 when I first moved here. But what I've also noticed that was different, and I don't have a history of being here and to know how it might have been like 30 years ago, but have you also noticed that the size of the moonrise and the moonset, the moon has been a lot bigger?
Yes, I have noticed that several different times.
Have you seen that, Travis, around your neck of the woods?
I have noticed that, especially when the full moon, whether it's a harvest moon or whatever, the full moon does seem to be closer or bigger.
So I don't know what the cause of that is. I think it could be a shift because even while we were down in the Caribbean, a lot of the locals before the storm hit were talking about climate change, and they think that maybe it could be because of pollution, because we're not managing things well, but they talk a lot about how their seasons have shifted too. And they've gotten a lot colder over the winter to where they actually have to use blankets during the winter time. So,
goodness, okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what it could be, but I think it's a lot more than just coincidence and the government chalking it up to, well, it just happens to be a strange season.
Didn't it become illegal to even say the phrase climate change or global warming?
I could believe that. I don't know. I don't.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think one of our guests quite some time ago had said something about that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still going to say it.
Yeah, exactly. We ain't afraid of no political correctness. We'll say it anyway.
Fake news.
We will not be held down by the man, damn it.
That's right.
You can't help your observations.
That's true. Exactly, yeah.
Whether they be brownie inspired or what.
I'm pretty sure they were okay. I found them in a freezer, so the guests had left them.
You're so paranoid over this whole brownie thing.
No, it's actually kind of funny because I wasn't going to eat them. I gave them to the upstairs people.
Aren't you going to feel really horrible when you wake up in the morning and they're like all just zoned out of their minds because you gave them special brownies?
You're assuming that there would be a difference in their behavior.
So what you're saying is the zombie apocalypse has happened already.
Yes, it has.
Okay, then. Good to know. Good stuff. Now, I have to ask, in recent months since you've been on the show, what would, without divulging, any confidentiality, what's the strangest or the weirdest reading that you've given?
Wow, I really have to think about that.
They're all strange. She's like, they're all so strange. I can't pinpoint one.
Not really. No. I know I've had a few strange ones out there, but it's whenever I've gotten them, I've kind of celebrated how strange they were because I'm like, wow, this is good. This is out there, and somebody is open to using unconventional methods to try to get closer to the truth.
Okay.
So it hasn't been so outstanding to me to where I see that it's strange. I mean, there's unusual. I think, okay, you know what? The strangest question I've gotten was, am I going to be president? And I had to ask the person 3 times. I mean, are you serious about this question? Do you mean it for real? And their reaction was like, yeah, why are you asking me over and over? And I said, because it is an unusual question. And I said, are you seriously considering running for president? And he said, yes. Okay, I'll pick cards on that. So,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the answer was, no, you're not going to be president, and you're not even going to run, because the politics of it would be a whole lot different from what you perceive it to be. Mm-hmm. And it would be such a turn off that very early in the game you would not continue. So, he was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that was it. It was so simple and over.
Well, okie dokie then.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was probably the strangest question I've gotten. I can't say that I've really had anything strange happen though, or my whole life. I have the planet Uranus, and Uranus rules Aquarius. I have that right on my lower heaven, so I get a lot of weird things happening. I'm a scientist, but I do psychic readings, so right there, that's like a walking contradiction for a lot of people. But yeah, I wouldn't say I had any kind of strange readings. Did you mean strange as like unusual things happening, or?
Well, no, just, kind of like you were talking about the person asking, were they going to be president? It would have been strange had you gotten, yes, they were going to be.
I think what threw me off was that it happened in Kansas City, and people here are very good with, a lot of them are conservative, so they're very good at maintaining the status quo. And what they aspire to is peace, and what they also aspire to at keeping things very family oriented, very apple pie. So what was unusual about it to me was that the guy was not a politician. He was actually another scientist. So the relationship between science and politics just didn't seem to be there. And it probably would have been less strange or unusual if I'd been, say, in Washington, D.C. or something, if someone wanted to ask. But I think that's why it was unusual. And it happened, it was one of those, it was a party reading too. So that's why I thought it was a joke. Like, you got to be kidding me. You're not really asking this, are you? But yeah, the person was dead serious, and he really wanted to know. So, I haven't received any follow-up on it, and I haven't tried to follow up at all. I don't follow up on readings, but it was I think that was the strangest question I've gotten. And panning out, it's not really a strange question. It's just an honest question.
That makes sense. It does.
Can I ask what took you guys down to the Antilles? I thought you were still in Kansas City, actually. I was surprised, but you don't have to answer that if it's too much or too much personal information you don't want out there.
Well, it's funny. It has a little bit to do with astrology, but more so it has to do with my husband, that he had an opportunity that was down there for a fellowship. So we had the choice of, I think, Tanzania, India, Kenya, or the Caribbean. I'm open to anything, but I told him I wasn't really ready for India. No particular reason. I just wasn't feeling it.
Feeling it. I can understand.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we looked at the political situations of Kenya and Tanzania, and there is a little bit of tremulousness there. My husband used to be an immigration lawyer in New York City, and he understands what it's like to take political asylum and refugee status. He's done hundreds of those cases. So he understands that you don't want to be in one of those situations. I've also lived in politically charged climates where like I was in the Middle East during the Arab Spring, for instance. I was in the Sinai when Israel and Palestine had one of their first intifadas. in a long time in 1994. So, I mean, I understand
wow.
what it means what it means where you have to be evacuated and usually governments, sorry government, but usually they don't do the cleanest job with civilians. So
right, yeah.
Both of us are kind of weary about being in a situation like that. So we said, why not closer to home? Why not the Caribbean? And it's like playing the lottery where you throw the numbers in. I mean, so many people wanted that we just threw it in and we said, well, okay, we'll throw it in. If it happens, it does. And if it doesn't, no big deal. I mean, we're not planning on that. And unexpectedly, it came up. Now,
fantastic.
it was, yes. So we had to kind of scramble to go down. We had to move quickly, which was fine. I mean, that works for me.
Sure.
And what made it also very attractive was that I had a Mercury midheaven line there. So we were talking about ley lines once during our past
Yes,
radio show,
yeah.
so to keep listeners up to date on
fascination with them.
yes. So to keep listeners up to date on that, you have your personal ley lines across the world astrologically according to the time and location that you were born. So say that you were born on the East Coast at noon. Well, at that same time in California, the sun is just rising. So if you feel a lot better moving to where the sun is coming up on the horizon, the rising horizon
Right,
at your point, you can actually move there and get the benefit of that energy, very much like a transit would be going through your sign. A transit is where the planets are versus where, in relationship to where your natal planets are. So for me, I thought, wow, this would be great moving to a Mercury midheaven versus the Pluto on my lower heaven that I have here in Kansas City, which, as you may have seen evidence on this on my website where there's some, there might be some power plays involved. My house built on a sinkhole, that was classic Pluto on the lower heaven. I mean, just
not the fun Disney Pluto either.
No, it's not at all. So I wanted to get a bit of that energy because Mercury was going to be making me a bit more active, making me live not on a sinkhole.
Right.
It would help me lose weight. And with the Mercury on the midheaven, and the midheaven is your career point, and Mercury is about communication. I was like, well, this would be great for doing readings if I do readings on the phone because the connection is right there. And I really found that it really did hook me up directly to the ethers in a much different way than I feel hooked up with Pluto to the lower heaven. So a lot of the impetus was because of my husband and his, what he's trying to achieve in his career. But what really helped us make the decision, besides it was kind of a lottery that we went into in that they had to select people. But the fact that we had better astrological alignments there made it very attractive and made us go ahead and say yes. So the other interesting thing was that I was telling my husband that Jupiter, the planet of expansion and going beyond your horizons and extra culture and meeting new people and philosophy and dogma, that it takes 12 years to go on a full cycle. In other words, it takes 12 years to end up in the same spot as it was when you were born. This is for everybody. And for me, it was going through my third house, about to go on to my fourth house, where I have Uranus, the planet of disruptions and changing the status quo, right on my home point. And every 12 years, without fail, somewhere between the second half of my third house and Uranus on the IC, when transiting Jupiter gets to that point, something major happens in my life where I have to move somewhere. So I told my husband,
Okay.
please put it in your schedule and please put it in the budget that while we're away, and it wasn't going to be the Caribbean. I knew that. I mean, us going over there, because I said the timing is not right. It's going to happen between mid-September to mid-October. I did. Now, I wasn't looking at hurricanes in my chart, but
Right, yeah.
I had more hopeful aspects with
You
it.
didn't know you were going to be blown all the way to wherever you were going.
Exactly. However, we did pick some tarot cards when we knew about Irma coming through, because we were, the tropical storm had already formed by that time, and we were supposed to travel around that time. And we had, and it was going to be up in the air with traveling. We didn't know what day it was going to be. We could have gotten 12 hours notice as far as travel.
Okay.
So we had to be packed up and ready to go. And we were worried about, well, it is hurricane season. Are we going to get hit with something? And particularly with Irma. So this was the interesting combination. We got the Five of Swords reversed, the Seven of Swords upright, and the Tower upright. So when you get the Tower in the tarot reading, and you're asking about hurricanes, I mean, that's kind of spelling it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes it is.
And but the Five of Swords was reversed, and the Seven of Swords was there. So I said, I think we're going to miss it. I said, but there is a storm that's going to come and knock us off our feet. And I said, we're going to relocate. And I kind of blew it off. And my husband said, no, really, is this something where, we're going to, and he actually literally said, are we going to be without a roof above our head? And I pulled out another card, and it was the Five of Pentacles. And that's when we got really solemn, like, whoa. And the pattern there was, 5, 7, 5. The Tower is 16, 1 plus 6 equals 7. And you add it all together, 5 plus 7 plus 5 plus 7 is 24, which equals 6. And in numerology, 6 is a number of love. So I said, it's going to be okay, though. And it's hard to be objective when you do readings for yourself. And, you opened the show on control, Travis.
Right.
So that's really
Yes.
interesting, because I looked at it and I said, if I'm going to let this control us, or if we allow our fears to control what decisions we make in our lives all the time, we're not going to live. So let's just go through with it.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what happens. I didn't think this would happen. But I was hoping this wouldn't happen.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really thought that the synergy was there, and the cards did say it loud and clear. They couldn't have gotten any clearer. But life has to go on. The show must go on.
Right. And it took a rather interesting turn, but yes, it still went on. Good.
And we're here now, and we're laughing about it. We're able to talk about it.
Exactly, yes. And that's the main part.
Yes,
Yeah.
catharsis is what we are all about.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I got to say, when I was talking about the Mercury line and losing weight, and I got to lose some weight when I first got there and stuff. I mean, things are natural. They're fresh. They're cool. They're not like genetically modified. Everything. You could pick it right off the tree and eat it.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Very cool.
But I lost the most amount of weight during the hurricane itself, and waiting for paid mercenaries to come and take us out of the country. So Mercury delivered what I was hoping for, probably not in the way I was asking for it. So careful what you wish for.
There you go. Yep. There's always that, yes.
But as a female, I can't complain. So about whenever a woman loses weight, they're usually pretty happy. So.
Yes, true.
Oh, I'm sorry. The dog
speaking
came
of,
in and was boxing me, or trying to box me. That's code for he'd like to go up to potty, but there are people upstairs that will let him out, so there.
Hopefully they're listening to the show and can get the cue for that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Well, all right, I lost that one. Travis, did you want to ask Cindy about readings and that type of thing, or was that just you talking to me at one point?
No, no. We as far okay. Back up. Which conversation are we talking about?
Oh, I don't remember.
Of course, you don't remember. No. Now you did a reading on Wendy, correct?
Yes, astrology.
Yep.
Astrology reading. So now
A chart.
a chart.
And I did her astro mapping too.
Yep.
Okay, so those are two different things.
No, it's like saying medicine, and there's different branches of medicine. And you could either go to a cardiologist or a nephrologist, or so
Okay, let me rephrase.
they're part of the same umbrella.
Right. Do you get different readings using two different approaches?
No.
Am I okay? So
No, it's just an
I don't
additional
even.
layer, I think.
Okay, I don't even know if I'm asking. I don't even know if I'm asking that right. So, for example, if you were to do a reading on me, what information would you want? If you were to do an astrological and what would
So the absolute necessary information for an astrology reading is your date of birth,
okay,
your place of birth, in other words, the city, the county, the country, and the exact time of birth, because sometimes even 2 minutes could make a difference.
okay,
So once we have those in order, that gives us the snapshot of the sky at the time that you were born, looking at it from the Earth's perspective.
okay. And what does that then tell us about where we are and where we're going?
So what that gives us is a natal chart. And the natal chart tells me your geotag, how you were imprinted by the energies at the time and location that you were born. And that would indicate to me your basic character and a lot of the patterns in your life, what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and a very good idea of what you could do to overcome these strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Now, in order to do predictions with astrology, we take a snapshot of the sky today and we overlay it on this natal chart, and we see how the planets in the sky today rub against your natal planets. So if we have, say, transiting Mercury, the planet of communication, going through Pluto, which, among other things, might indicate some deep-rooted issues you may have, I would look at it and say, Mars might be involved too. I would look at it and say, watch your tongue over the next few weeks, because Mercury is going to make you say some really impactful, sharp things to people. So, and we could actually come down to a timing with how that would work. So that's how the basics of astrology works, especially when we're doing predictions. Having your natal chart is a treasure in itself, because say that you have a hard time landing chicks, all right, assuming you're straight and you like women. And we see that there's some afflictions in your chart with Venus and Mars, and, sometimes it might involve the moon or Pluto. And we could say, hey, you have issues with picking up women. It has, it might have something to do with, say, your mother or your family or with karma. And what you could do to overcome it is A, B, C, D. So if you're able to apply that, that would really, just looking at it, it's almost like getting a diagnosis. And right there, you have half the answer and the inspiration to go ahead and get something done about it.
Okay.
Now, what we do with astro mapping, which is, laying the planets across the globe to where they may have been rising or setting, or where they were at the high point of the sky or the lowest point of the sky, which is the midheaven and the lower heaven. Those are charge points. Those are like direct electrical outlets where we could, if you move to those lines, you will definitely get the energy of those lines to charge your life. It's like it's like getting a transit, having a favorable transit in your area. So if I said, okay, I'm looking at your chart, I see you have problems with women, this is what you could do to overcome it. But if you're having a hard time doing that here, if you move over to your Venus descendant line, for instance, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more facilitated. And not only just from your part and on your actions, but on the actions of the women with you.
Okay. So I have never had any type of psychic reading done.
Okay.
On myself. If I were to send you that information, would you do one on me?
Absolutely.
I would be very curious. Although I think you basically just gave me a reading, Trouble with Women. I think that pretty much just kind of, I can push that, over and say, okay, thank you very much. There we go. I've been read. I would be very, because actually while you were talking, I was going through my desk here, and I actually have a copy of my birth certificate, so I can actually give you location, date, actual date of birth, actual time of birth, everything. So I would be very interested to see what type of reading you came up with.
Okay, so what city were you born in?
The city of Abingdon, Virginia.
Okay, so how do you spell Abingdon?
Abingdon.
D like dog or T like T?
D like dog. Abingdon.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
VA. Okay. What's your birth date?
1/24/76.
Ah, you're a January
Yes.
Aquarius. That's good. What time?
5:44 a.m.
Okay. Okay. So I have to ask two questions.
That's
A,
fine.
are you ready for the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And B, are you willing and open to share this, no matter how embarrassing it may be? I'm not looking at your chart yet, but I'm asking. Just
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will. Yes, I will.
Okay. Well, okay, let me just take a really quick look here. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking at your natal chart right now, and I took a really quick glimpse at your transits just to see what you may be going through. And it's interesting that I don't necessarily see that you have problems with women, but I do see that you are, you keep your love life rather private. And sometimes it's kind of demystifying for you, because I also see you have Neptune in the 12th house. So you have Venus in the 12th house as well, which makes me say you kind of keep it private, but whenever you're with your partner, you're very fun and very active together.
Yes, that is true.
So,
and I know you're using quotes around fun and active. I get that. I see the air quotes.
Well, no, you have your own brand of fun. You have Venus and Neptune and Sagittarius. So, it's in the house of Pisces. So it's going to be it's your own brand of fun. It's rather elusive, but not to you.
Very true. Yes. That's true. I told you I'll be truthful. You lay it out there and I will tell.
I enjoy that. You have a Capricorn rising, even though you're an Aquarius. So the impression that people get of you, I mean, Aquarius is known to be forward-thinking and rather unusual, but with the Capricorn rising, do you tend to look rather serious and sometimes a little bit too solemn?
Always. Most people have a difficult time reading any emotion on me whatsoever.
Well,
physically.
Physically, that's a lot of it has to do with your Capricorn rising, but nothing will ever want to go and defy your Scorpio moon.
Okay.
So your Scorpio moon is going to have generally, and especially as a male, you're going to have good control of your emotions, but you're going to have very deep-seated emotions, especially for an Aquarius. So the other thing I see is that you have a very long memory, although you prefer not to. And
Yes.
you have, let's see what else you got. Oh, do you tend to like to get the last word in with arguments? Not that you like arguing, but you like to get the last word in?
Of course I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to mute myself through that laughter?
No, I do. I despise not getting the last word in an argument, and not even a heated argument, but even, let's say, a fun debate. I still want to get the last word. Hell, even in texting, it's so funny that you bring that up, because it's actually very funny with my mother. If I'm texting with her and I'll text her, she'll say, "Good night, I love you," and I'll text back, "Good night, I love you too," and then she'll text back, "We love you," and I am literally compelled to text back, "Love you guys too." I will not let it end. It will go and go and go until I just find, and after a while I will, okay, this has to stop.
Have you ever been accused of being intense? Because I do see that you have some planets on your angles, and the angles are these, like I said, these electric sockets, these direct electric sockets. So,
define intense. When you say intense, how are you defining it? I mean, yes, I've been accused of being intense, but I've been accused of that on different levels. I'm intense when it comes to working. I am a workaholic. I am intense when it comes to
Your devotion to your children.
Devotion to my children. I'm intense in the bedroom, as you mentioned, fun. And I mean, yes, I have been accused of being intense in a lot of different levels. So based on the angles that you're talking about, when you say intense, what are you talking about? So
you have Venus very close to your ascendant, and because it's in the 12th house, what I would say is that there is intensity, yes, in your love life there. The other intensity I see, yes, definitely with your children, where it's you have Jupiter in Chiron very close to your lower heaven, which is your home point, your foundations. So I do see that when you have fun with them, you have a lot of fun.
Yes.
And if something harms them, or if you're disappointed, damn, that hits pretty deep.
Yes.
And likewise with your parents, I do see that I can't see if this is with your mom or dad, because traditional astrology says the lower heaven's your mother and the upper heaven's your father, but I always look at it as whichever one was the mother to you, whichever one was the father to you. So that there is a type of collar tugging with one parent and a deep need to satisfy with the other parent. So, there's a little bit of that intensity issue there.
Yes, my mother and I go head to head all the time.
Okay, so that's with your mom then.
But my mother and I are constantly at odds with one another. Freud was not wrong about everything. It does come back to that. She and I had a very, very close relationship, not that way. So she and I had a very, very close relationship growing up. As I got older and as I became more my own person and my own man, and I use that in quotes, but not necessarily, as my own man, she and I have gone head to head. She disapproves of many of the choices that I continue to make in my life. My father and I now, he and I we were close, but we weren't close growing up. Mm-hmm. There were, some of my earliest memories and my fondest memories are with my dad growing up, watching movies late at night, because he worked. I mean, he worked in the coal mines, so I was able to spend time with him when I could. But he and I are much closer now. He and I have conversations, whereas my mother lectures. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there is this constant tug of war with one, and then this, trying to appease the other.
What was your dad's sign?
I'm sorry?
Your dad's sign?
His sign?
Yeah.
He's born in June. What is that?
What part of June?
June 10th.
Okay, so he was a Gemini.
Gemini. Mm-hmm. And my mother is born in March 8th.
An Aries?
Oh, good heavens.
God, I hate when I don't memorize these things. Yeah. So I'm trying to look for them in your chart. Sorry, your mom was a Pisces.
Yes, she
yeah.
is.
Okay, so, and, sorry, you said your father was in June?
June 10th.
June 10th, okay. So Pisces and a Gemini. Wow, that's an interesting combination.
You should have grown up in the house with them.
And with you, I could see that you have a lot of cardinal energy, which means that you like to take charge. You like to have things your way.
Yes.
And with them, sometimes it's like they wouldn't have made enough solid plans for your liking. So you would have had to take
Oh my
the reins.
God. Oh my God. My parents didn't plan shit. They didn't, and they still don't. And I still have arguments with them. Literally, August 7th was my baby sister's birthday. My baby sister's, let's see, she turned 34, I guess. I had been asking my parents for 2 weeks what were the plans, because I had to leave town for a business trip that weekend. Mm-hmm. So I kept asking, what are the plans? What are the plans? What are the plans? There aren't any. There aren't any. We're not going to do anything. I swear to Christ, October 6th, that night, they go, can you come over for a birthday party?
Wow.
And that is my life. We would take family vacations. They wouldn't make reservations. We would go places, and we would drive and drive and drive until we found some place that was open and had a vacancy.
So let me ask you, and this is a little bit of a sensitive question, but this could tie very much into their signs. Were they people that made things up just for the sake of making things up?
What do you mean? Because I could tell you a really interesting story, but what do you mean? But they would make things up just to make things up?
You know, like your mom might tell people that you're out of town when you're really in town. You know, or
actually, my mother wouldn't do that. Because my mother is hardline black and white. Okay. As far as and oh Jesus, this is one of those ways. You know, I come from the cells of advertising, marketing, and PR.
Cool.
As far as I'm concerned, the truth is malleable. I can make it whatever I want it to be. I mean, it you know, I deal with numbers and I deal with perception, and so I play around with those things. My mother's statement is, if you lie, you'll steal or kill.
If you lie, what will happen to you?
You will steal, or you will. If you're willing to lie, you're willing to steal, and you're willing to kill. My mother does not differentiate between any of those things. She thinks one is just as bad as the other. My mother is one of those people that, growing up, if somebody would call and want to know if she was there, she would go into the bathroom and stand in the shower so that we could tell the person she was in the shower, and she did that before.
Wow.
So very, very. Literal, very literal type of interpretation of things.
Okay, so she probably has some very heavy Scorpio and Sagittarius influences there together, which possibly, you know, would really want you to keep up integrity, but you know, with not differentiating the difference between, you know, if you're going to lie, then you're going to kill.
Yes,
that's a pretty intense type of conviction to have there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but you you could come to Thanksgiving dinner. I'll be more than happy to let you sit around and have this conversation with them. Yes. I mean, that is my mother. And she and my father do complement each other in some ways. And as you mentioned, you know, it was an interesting pairing. Yeah. Growing up in that household was very interesting.
Okay, well, it looks like, you know, with you, because you had a lot of that cardinal energy, the taking initiation. Plus, you do have fixed energy. You're fairly stubborn when it comes down to certain convictions.
I can be, yes.
Yeah. Luckily, you have a lot of air in your chart, which makes you very open to other people's ideas. So it's not this type of mountain, I'm not moving type of, stubbornness. It's more like, I have my beliefs and that's what they are. Oh, Nibiru is coming and that's what it does to us? Okay. Kind of thing, like.
No, you're absolutely right. I have what I believe personally, but I am extremely open to everyone else's point of view. And I am to the point of saying, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate my own view. Evidenced by tonight, I have never one time had, and I have been asked to on several occasions to have a psychic, a reading of some sort, whether it be a palm reader or, and I'm not talking about like at a carnival, but I mean, an actual professional. I've never done it, but I felt like tonight, as Wendy's already had it done, you're a guest on the show. I think it's very important that if we're talking about this, that I experience it so that I can talk about it.
Good. Well, okay, so that's a little bit of a summary of your natal chart. I'm realizing time is of the essence here.
Yeah, actually not. We have plenty of time.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you were saying that you work hard, so you've got Mars in your 6th house, which is the house of working and services to others. So that would give you a lot of drive, but you have it in Gemini. So I do see that sometimes as you're working, you have, sometimes if you get distracted, that's it. So when you work, you really almost have a...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're actually...
So, for you to really get the most amount of work done, and this is very trying and tiring on you. You almost have to be within a cube of protection, like 4 walls, no windows. And man, you could get, there are times where I see where you're able to get done 3 weeks worth of work in 3 days, because you could burn the candle at both ends and
yes,
and really have the capacity to catch up pretty quickly. But I don't see that you enjoy that as being pleasant. That's not, there's Neptune that's there, which is a very dissolving type of energy, where I do see that if you ever have to be put in a situation like that, and that was more something you've done in youth than in older age, but you have been able to achieve that. But for you like to, whenever you get into your hard work, God forbid you end up getting distracted.
I was laughing because my former business partner always said that I was the Sherlock Holmes of the advertising and PR world. He said it took a client to challenge me to get me to actually work. And I would, and I did. I literally, and I still do it in my management role. I will bury myself if I'm challenged. If it gets to the point of being mundane and tedious, and it's just going through the motions, I clock out entirely. I have to be challenged in order for me to actually put in that workaholic mode. And you're right. It's not just that I can do 3 weeks worth of work in 3 days. I could do 3 weeks worth of work in 3 hours.
Well, then that's the key, because it's Mars in Gemini, so it really has to be an intellectual challenge.
Yes.
Right. And you have Cancer in your 7th house, so with Saturn in Cancer. So even though you're rather forward thinking, and you are open to people's ideas despite your convictions. The kind of woman that you would have been attracted to is a rather domestic type of woman. That I don't mean someone that's going to be staying at home all day, but you needed somebody that will not only have your back, but someone that you could trust 110% with your kids. Now, you could, there's some people that you could love, but they're never going to be a good mother. Mm-hmm. And you are never going to be no matter how hot, how great it was, how perfect of a union, if she wasn't going to be a good mom, she was not going to be your partner?
That I honestly cannot answer. Of course, I have been married. I have an ex-wife. I have 2 kids. My relationships have tended to not last very long, in all honesty. I have been divorced. This is 2017. The divorce was fine. I've been divorced 8 years, 9 years, 9 years. Post-divorce, I have had 2 that I would call relationships. And by that, I am defining them as being at least a year or longer. One of those lasted from 2008 until 2010, right after the divorce, or actually right after the separation, 2008 to 2010. 2010 to 2013, in all honesty, there were several, not relationships, but several encounters. We'll use that term. For the sake,
I like that term.
We did mark this not appropriate for children, did we not, Wendy?
Well, no, but I can.
No, I mean, between 2010 and 2013, there were several encounters. 2013, I met someone that I wanted, that I fell in love with, and that I wanted very much to have a relationship with, and that transpired between 2013 and on again off. Well, it was from 2013 until March of 2016. It was a steady relationship of living together, and she had 2 children, I had 2 children. We weren't together. We didn't have the kids in the same house. We lived together. Her kids would be there sometimes. I would go and keep my kids at my parents' house, actually. But that was a 2-year relationship like that, and then from 2016, even through now, that relationship has been an on again, off again type of thing.
Well, what's her sign, if you don't mind sharing that?
May 16th.
Okay, so she is a Taurus.
Yes.
And generally with an Aquarius, just generally, especially seeing that you're an early Aquarius and she is a late Taurus. Let me see where she is in your chart exactly. Oh, I see where this is. Okay, so you feel some kind of fated pull towards her, but sometimes you really just want to choke her at the same time.
Wendy, turn Vincent off. He's not supposed to laugh like that when we're on the show.
So I see you're being kind of close to the point of your south node in your chart. And so there is going to be a bit of, and then I'm going to, I'd have to go back and look at the times to see what exactly was transiting in your chart to help create this feeling of love. And it would help if I had hers too. But just looking at yours, I do see that there would have been some kind of, some fate, some kind of almost a little bit of a recognition of someone from a tribe you once were part of, okay. Whether it's in this life or a past life, okay. This planet or another planet, it doesn't matter. You just recognize that there was some kind of commonality there to where you would have definitely felt fated. You would have respected, you might have respected a little bit of her hard-headedness, even though it would have driven you crazy. But it looks like she is somebody who also tried to inject balance and fun into your life. That might have gone against the grain with you in some ways. At first, it's like, yeah, this is exactly what I need. Okay, stop. This is too much of what I need now, kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say that you are probably, I'm not going to say 100% right, because that would give you the last word, and I'm just not going to let that happen. No, in many ways, we had a lot of similarities. We liked a lot of the same things. So there were and things that I had never met a woman that liked the same things that I did. Music, foods, wines, liquors, very, very superficial things on the surface, but at the same time, very, very meaningful to me. Someone that just had a kindred spirit. We liked the same music, we liked the same movies, we liked all of those things, but very different at the same time. She is much more empathic than I am. She's in the healthcare field, taking care of people. I don't do that. It's not me. I don't really care, to be quite honest. That's just not my area. So she brought out a lot of the humanity in me, in many ways. You mentioned that people would find me intense, and that they would find me. What was it that you said? And I said that on a physical appearance, even my ex-wife told me that my facial expressions never changed between happy, angry, sad, depressed. My facial expressions, she said I had the perfect poker face because it didn't matter what was going on, my face never changed. Mm-hmm. That all changed. I honestly don't like emotions, to be quite frank. This individual brought those emotions out. All of them. Love, lust, anger, all of those emotions came out. And I honestly didn't know how to deal with that. So yeah, damn it, KC Carroll. Honestly, this is actually quite amusing for me. And I mean that in a very, very heartfelt sense. I don't mean that I find it funny. I find this very, very cathartic.
Good. Well, with your Aquarius and your Capricorn, you're going to want to be a little bit detached naturally, but your Scorpio moon is very deep. And you have the planet of Pluto, which is that very deep-seated emotions, has a lot of intensity, transformation. You have that in the 9th house in Libra. And what that would do is that it gives you a very thoughtful personality and makes you have a focus on things that are deeper. And you may want to constantly look into things and try to rediscover the meaning of your existence and the existence of the people around you, the community, humanity at large. And it helps you be concerned. The 9th house is, and 9th house is naturally ruled by Sagittarius. So it's going to make you kind of look more into being concerned as life unfolds with religious or your kind of ethically based type of beliefs. Mm-hmm. But being in Libra, it's going to make you want to be fair and open, and it's retrograde, meaning it appears to move backwards, which would explain. Which would explain why I pursued a career in the ministry, but couldn't do that because while I have a great love of theology, debate, and discussion, I can't take a hardline view on telling people how to live their lives. Exactly. You have to look for a more holistic worldview based on direct experience. And this indicates that throughout your life, and this is going to be from birth till death, you're going to constantly undergo rather dramatic and radical transformations of your ideals and your points of view on people. So I do see with Libra there, you're going to want to try to believe and see the best, but you're open you're open to seeing more and more about the truth, ugly and beautiful, just to get to the bottom of things. And what's nice about it is that seeing the connection to where, Mercury and Aquarius is in your chart to a lot of these truth planets in your chart, you are always going to be stimulated and feeling alive by seeking it.
Yes. And again, we talked last week, I think. No, actually, Wendy, it was the week that you were off, and I was talking to. Damn it, I forgot his name now. Because we had such a great conversation. Because he had
Brad
studied.
Steiger.
Yeah, Brad Steiger. From a theological standpoint, I love pursuing answers. I don't really think I'm ever going to get any. For whether it's religious, theological, paranormal, I don't think the answers are out there. But I do think it's kind of that Gnostic journey. It's that wanting to pursue. It's that wanting to take the road less traveled.
Yeah. Well, another really interesting point in your chart is you have Uranus and the Moon in the 10th house, right next to each other, and the Moon is all about cycles and emotions in general, and Uranus is the planet of disruption. So you mix those two together, and I could see a little bit now what you're describing about some of the disruptions with your mother, because the Moon would also represent your mom or whoever your mom was to you. But with Uranus, it's, they're both in Scorpio in the 10th house. So what it does is that with your career and your ambition, it makes you a bit willful and rebellious in some ways. And those emotions are going to charge it. So where you want to be rather detached, you're going to be like, damn if I do. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to make sure that I get my point across. I don't care if this upsets the status quo. I don't care if this is unconventional. I'm going to get it done.
And I always have.
And I think with politics, you kind of look at it, and I don't know if you're happy or disappointed in general. I think the way you're looking at it is, as long as it's not the same, as long as it doesn't stagnate, as long as we could kind of change and keep things going, that's fine with me. Like, if you had to live in a country where we had a dictator for the same 25 years, that would choke you. But, these different changes of presidents and politics to you is like, hey, this is exactly where we need to be.
Well, and you're absolutely right. One of the things that I would say, and this is, one of those mental directions that I would go that got me in trouble as an actual pastor, I don't like traditions. Yeah. Unless there's an honest to God reason for them. That's fine, but don't just tell me that you're doing something because you're doing it. Yes, I don't like the fact that we stagnate, whether it's in political or whether it's economic or whether it's relationships or whatever. I hate the mundane and the status quo. That's not life. That's not life. No. You're existing. That's it, and maybe not even then.
But that's the thing. That's really interesting, is that stagnation kills you emotionally more than it would kill you mentally.
Yes.
And especially with these two planets in Scorpio. So for an Aquarius, you are a very connected person to the tangible, whereas usually Aquarius it's an air sign. It's connected to the ethers. It's connected to just being detached, being up there, being out there. Not being so stifled on trivial or trifle matters, but with you do have a fair share of planets that are in water, which are the emotional planets, that are in Scorpio, which are very, that's a rather intense placement. But you also have a nice share in fire, which keeps you wanting to move forward too. I mean, it's kind of similar to it matches well with cardinal energy in that you are going to want to take it to be very productive rather than, all right, I'll just blow in the wind. So you do have a lot of determination there for sure in your chart, and that's where a lot of that intensity I do see comes in as well. Now, and you do have a good emphasis on thinking and relating too, because the most amount of planets you have is the modality of air, which ends up making you pretty thoughtful as well. So you end up seeing the benefits of many perspectives. And I think one one of the only dangers of that is that sometimes you see too many sides to the picture, and it might make you hard, it might make it a little bit difficult for you to focus one at a time, because there's just not simply enough time on this earth for that, or for a lifetime rather for that. So that might be a source of a bit of anxiety or a bit of trouble or a sense of trouble in your life. But these are like just the basic outlines, the basic skeleton of your natal chart. So,
Well,
pardon me?
No, I was going to say, so far you're pretty effing dead on. So,
Good.
and that cracks me up in a good way, because like I said, I've never done this before. So it's actually interesting to hear an objective third party read me for the good and the bad. I mean, I've had a lot of people point out my bad. Don't get me wrong. But it's nice to hear a balance of why that's the case.
Good. Okay, so what's interesting is looking at your transits chart is you've had a lot going on in your career, and you still do. Did you recently get a promotion, or you're up for one very soon?
I don't know. No, well, for the past 2 years, I have been the manager for 2 radio stations in Kentucky. Now, but that's only one of a couple of different aspects of what I do. I still consult, so I have a client that is getting ready to run. She is running for the nomination, but she is running for Congress, U.S. Congress in Virginia. I have a client that has a book that we're trying to option for a film, and then I have a client that is trying to raise the funding to shoot a film in Eastern Kentucky. So there are multiple aspects. I mean, when you say I'm up for a promotion or something's about to happen, there are at least 4 different scenarios where that could be taking place.
Okay, well, what it looks like is that very soon, within the next few weeks, as a matter of fact, you have Jupiter, the planet of expansion, that will be crossing over your natal Uranus, and that usually is a time of windfall, and it's happening in the 10th house of career. So I do see that something good will happen, something that if you could pull a cat out of a hat, just not only a rabbit, with something like that, especially in terms of your career. Now, what's funny about it is, has your mom kind of negged you about your career and what you do in general? Because I do see that you get the good news and you almost want to brag about it, and your mom is like, just kind of negging you about it. So,
well, both my parents don't really understand what I even do, and never have. They just don't grasp it. So yes, my mother, just a couple of weeks ago, was talking about this very, very. I'm going to sound like an extreme ass when I say that, but a very, very menial type of position in a company that she thought I should apply for. That I would never even remotely consider applying for. So yeah, you're right. Again, dead on. Damn you.
Well, so I do see a little bit of, again, the collar tugging or a bit of friction with that, or her negging you or whatever. But I also see that you're going to be putting more and more energy into your work, into your job, when it, in relation to your career, as far as making career moves, because we have Mars, the planet of ambition, that is going through your 9th house of expansion, of your horizons, but it will soon be crossing your career point. So that would make you focus a bit more, even harder, on what's going on with your job and trying to get things done. Maybe a little bit of burning the midnight oil, but making sure you get the job done right. It's not like, hey, it's 5 o'clock, 80% done, time to go. Right. You're going to be like, no, I want to wrap this up 110%. I want to make sure that it's behind me and I could put my name on it. Mm-hmm. So you might be feeling that you're building up towards that. But you also have Venus that has just crossed your career point. And that, to me, usually indicates something favorable happening. Interestingly enough, it is but the way it affects your public life, especially with your career and your ego assertion, is that it ends up kind of making you appear more sympathetic towards your coworkers and just in public. You might have found yourself a little bit more attracted to things that are a lot more aesthetically pleasing, and you may have found yourself being inadvertently aesthetically pleasing to other people or whatever your choices are. So it kind of softens some of, or it brings kind of softening to your public life in a positive way. So if you haven't experienced that, I would tell you to try to look forward to it. And I also see that you are actually going to be networking a bit more with people around you. So it almost looks like there's no one to network with, but you will be able to find people outside of what you're doing and bring them into the fold of what you're doing, which is really interesting. That's that too is also pulling a cat out of a hat, in a way where, if you're doing, say, marketing or filming and you're talking to, I don't know, somebody who's rather conservative and not into, they feel whatever ethics, involved against certain advertising, but you're going to be able to turn them around and bring them into the fold. And you're really going to feel very satisfied with that. It looks like lately, too, you've been kind of paring down with some of your social life and the friends around you in general. Does that sound accurate?
I don't really have that many to begin with. It's kind of hard to pare. It's really kind of hard to pare them down. I don't.
What are you trying to say, Cindy? Am I about to be cut from the roster?
No.
No, seriously, I don't have a lot of friends.
Well, it looks like you've been doing some kind of, purging in your life of at least, at least sorting out aspects of what you don't need and trying to sort out what you do need and discarding, all those, whatever is not really working with you and your present self-concept. I do see you just saying, why am I holding on to this? I mean, even things that you might have held on to for the past, few decades, just you saying enough is enough with this.
Mm-hmm. No, in the past several weeks, yes, getting rid of some baggage, some attachments. Yes, that when you said paring down friends, I was like, okay, I don't really have that many to pare down. It's kind of like, Agatha Christie's "Then There Were None" basically is defining my friendship circle. 10 little Indians. No, but yeah, that is accurate. Yes.
Okay, and what I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up about is you're going to be doing, I know you said that you're not dating as much now, or you're just, you do sound like you're very selective with how you date, but you're going to get to a little bit of a point as Saturn starts to cross over Venus, which is a planet of love. Saturn with, the ring around it, imagine it being like a belt of restriction. So there's going to be some restrictions with your emotions or your love and how you feel about, dating women or finding women, where you're going to go through a little part of, woe is me, there's no women around, they're all gone. And, so it's, and screw them anyway kind of thing,
Right,
where it's not only just the woe with me, but, it's somehow their fault as well. So when you're,
well, Jimmy Buffett says it's all you women's fault. So at the end of Margaritaville, he's like, it's all you women's fault. No, yeah. Okay.
So just a little bit of a heads up with that, because I do see that generally tends to be a feeling, and especially if it's happening in your 12th house, that's going to be happening hidden away from people. So when you're at home alone, that's when you're really going to be thinking about it and really going through your own kind of crisis with that, with your love life, of summing yourself up incorrectly in a very bad light, of almost blaming yourself and, all these women are witches, with a B. But what is it with me that, what's wrong with, you still are going to be very introspective about it, but not openly. You might have already started feeling that way around, well, not just about women in general, but as far as just, being in the process of looking at your achievements and even the residue and the remnants of things that you don't need from the past few decades, where you're looking to kind of restructure or get a fresh start. And that would have started around the end of 2015, like after Christmas, closer to New Year's. And you're already kind of in the heat of it now. So,
I'm sorry. Yeah. I need you to go back, and I want you to address. I want you to address that specifically.
What part?
Exactly what you said and the time frame that you were mentioning.
Okay, so that would have started after Christmas of 2015.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you would have felt it reach ahead a couple of times already. So probably around the end of June of 2016, you would have felt that. You would have felt that. You definitely would have felt it. Let me backtrack a little, around the beginning of January too, shortly after New Year's, where, I don't see you being much into New Year's resolutions as a seriousness, maybe as a novelty, but for some reason it would have really hit you around then. And it would hit you again around the end of September, early October of 2016.
2016, yeah, 2016. Yep. And would it have hit me again? Now I'm fishing. Now I'm fishing. Would it have hit me again? Shut up, Wendy. Stop laughing.
Sorry. I'll mute me again.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say this. You so far you're dead on. So I want you to keep going. Can you give me some more dates when it might have hit me? Because right now you are dead effing on in your statements.
All right. So definitely,
and your dates.
Good. Well, that's what astrology is. It's a big clock.
So we're at the end of September, beginning of October, 2016.
Yes. So now that would have been when it would have hit ahead, but then you would have felt that left, not exactly a left turn, but definitely a change of directions with things and with perspective. So that's still going on. That will continue to go on actually until the end of October of 2018. But it really is going to hit ahead again around mid-August of 2018. So if you're looking at something else that might have hit ahead around that time, there's possibility. I'm not looking at meteors or asteroids or, these extra planets. I'm just looking at the basic planets. But in this case, I do see that it would have hit you. 2016 would have been a year of hard knocks with you for that.
You ain't lying. No, you're not. Now you mentioned mid-August 2018.
Yes. So do you want me to? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I'm not going to lead this at all because so far you're it's like shooting fish in a barrel for you. I mean, it's like boom, 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 and I'm just picking them out and going, okay, yeah, she got that one right. She got that one right. So no, mid-August 2018, what's going to happen?
So that's when you're finally going to say, you know what, enough of this. Enough of me having these repeated feelings that life is hard, that, things that are beyond your, here's that word again, your conscious control. So what you're going to do is look at the circumstances of external events and things happening to you, just life in general, and feeling limited and just saying, you know what, screw it. I have to take the next step of what I need to do. So there might be a little bit of you kind of already going through, I mean, you were talking about a withdrawal from active participation socially or with life in your love life. But what you're really going to do is just say, okay, I got to really change hats here. And I'm going to put my, my restructuring hat on and move forward with this. Now, what's really interesting is that what else is happening in your chart is you've got Uranus, the planet of disruption, that has already transited right over your lower heaven, your foundations, your personal identity, your home. So, and that's going over the planet of Chiron. Actually, Chiron's an asteroid, but and Chiron indicates where the wound is in your chart. So this is in some ways like feeling T-boned straight at home. But it would also give you a sense of freedom and spontaneity, a type of autonomy that you need. Departing from the normal run of the mill consciousness and whatever is, whatever way that you approach your children and your family, your parents. So it tends to bring a bit of it serves your ability to evolve, your ability, in a good way, in an ability to kind of actualize yourself. But with Saturn kind of restraining you, there's, it tends to be a slow process in that you're ready to burst out, but you can't go from Clark Kent to Superman, and just ripping off your suit. You have to kind of do this slowly, unfortunately. So I think one of those other dates I would have seen around beginning of April of this year, where you would have really felt that type of frustration. Does that ring a bell with you?
It does.
Okay. Well, here's something else that's coming up. So what are you? You're 41 years old right now?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have your Uranus half return coming up pretty soon. And let me forward your chart.
Did you say I'm half-assed? Is that
No. So the planet Uranus takes 84 years to go in full cycle. In other words, to end up in the point of your chart where it was at the time you were born. In other words, you're not going to see it reach the point of your chart where you were born until you're 84 years old.
Which I won't see, but okay.
Well,
no,
we're not going to debate that. But the half return, meaning halfway there when it's in opposition to your natal Uranus, because this is an outer planet and this is a disruptive planet and it has a lot of surprises in store, is going to be, it usually happens around 42 years old.
Okay.
So let me try to animate your chart in a year from now to see if it's actually going to hit around that time. Let me see. You've got natal Uranus at 7 degrees Scorpio. Okay, so just give me another. I'm going month by month here.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Just a reminder to the listeners, we're listening to Cindy McKean. She has Kansas City Astrology and Tarot.
And she is giving me, Travis Short, my very first reading. So this is, and damn it, she's
spot on.
She is spot on, and it's really freaking me out, making me, giving me pause, and making me not like her a whole lot. I'm just saying.
You'll get over it.
I know. She has just this chipper personality where you want to like her, and that pisses me off too. Damn it.
Well, you got to see me with my makeup off. I'm not that happy. No, I'm kidding.
And you should see me with mine off. John Wayne Gacy. I see, and you know,
I was just trying to remember which one he was.
he was the clown killer. Dressed up
Oh,
like a clown, killed all the men, buried them under his house.
oh, that guy. Yeah, right.
The clown killer. Wait, I thought he was the one that liked to try
Well,
to seduce and kill young men.
He was, but dressed as a clown.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, he was.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
really twisted, isn't it?
That.
He and
Yes,
Dahmer
it-
wouldn't get along because Dahmer would have found him to taste kind of funny. I know. See, he was dressed as a clown. Tastes kind of funny. Get it? It's great.
It's all the makeup that doesn't taste so good.
Mm. Makeup never tastes good. Makeup never tastes good. Ever.
Says the guy who tried licking it off several times. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm just
Nope.
sitting here thinking, the dogs never miss an opportunity to lick your face and all your makeup off, but
Beeswax. Right? So-
actual
Exactly.
canines, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so your Uranus half return, which is what I just explained, where it's 180 degrees away from where it was in your natal chart, is a big time in your life. That's when people tend to say that's when a midlife crisis occurs, and or you might have big changes. You would tend to have some kind of big changes. With you, I see it happening possibly in your career. So there's going to be something interesting happening with that. And what they always say with it, and I'm going through it right now, so I hate to give you this frustrating answer, but expect anything. But
Okay.
what I would tell you is that, seeing that this does occur on the 4th house, 10th house aspect, in other words, the home foundation / career aspect, I do see that there are going to be some changes in your career and some changes at home. So there's going to be a bit of a restructuring with probably the times that you do see your kids. Are they going to be a little bit old enough or teenagers by that time to where...
My next year, my son will be 15. My daughter will be 14.
Okay,
He will
so
be-
that makes a whole lot of sense
Yeah,
with that.
He will be 15 on January 6th. She will be 14 on July 7th. So literally like 18 months between the two of them.
All right, and they both live with their mom right now,
They do.
primarily? Okay,
They do.
so I would not be surprised if one or both of them decide that they want to come and live with you. Just out of nowhere, out of the blue, and you're like, I did not incite this, I did not tell them, I did not influence them. I do see, and I'm just saying that your reaction would be that way because I do see their mom being kind of pissed off about it and accusing, but the truth is going to be pretty obvious as the sun in the sky that this was their decision. And I do see that happening around the middle of the summer, so closer to the beginning of June of 2019,
Okay.
where, you would experience a lot of those changes. But what I also see that's interesting is that you're going to be kind of up and ready to start dating at that time, but it's going to severely cramp your love life. So you're going to be like, damn, just when I got in the mood, my kids are,
Okay.
you love them, so, it's not like you're going to be pissed at them, but, you're
Right,
just going to be like, as life has it, Murphy's Law type of thing. Now, what's lucky for you is that, you're not going to have too many hard hits with your Uranus half return, but one thing I do see that might be possible, and you're going to try to resist this, and don't laugh at this, but there's a possibility that you might have a bit of a short-term fling with a much younger girl. When I say much younger, I mean, more than 10 years, possibly closer to 15. And
that is
that's
no,
just,
that's just that, okay. That would make. Let's see. I'm 41. That would make her. Oh, Jesus Christ! You're talking 26.
yeah, probably closer, and in her later 20s, like the 26 to
20. Yeah.
30,
Yeah.
possibly,
Okay.
or 30, mid 30s.
Okay, that's bizarre. Because honestly, most of my relationships have been with women older than I am.
Well, you need the intellectual. You can't deal with a bubblehead, and that's that's just part of your ingrained psyche with your chart here.
I can't. I can't. I honestly, I just can't.
Which is part of the reason this is going to be short-lived. The other part is because, your family obligations to your kids. But another part of it is that you're just going to kind of come to your senses pretty quick and say, well, this was a thrill that I needed, but it's not an injection that I constantly have to be on. And I also see what's really interesting is that Saturn is going to be moving into your first house. And what that does is that with that restructure I was talking about, that's really going to be making its headway during that period. And I do see you looking into different ways of communication, especially with how you deal with radio, how you deal with your announcing, how you deal with talking to large crowds, where it's going to make you try to say more with less. So I do see you're very good at oration naturally, but during this period coming up with Saturn is going to be transiting through your first house, and that's going to be occurring around, very soon. That's actually going to be happening shortly after New Year's in 2018. And it's going to continue all the way up until shortly before Christmas of 2021, where you're just really kind of not necessarily reinventing, but really reapproaching how you start going forward with the way you communicate, the way you apply things, the way you might even get into some kind of not formal teaching, but informal teaching, showing people the way. And that ties in with your children in some ways too.
It does, but I'm going to stop you for just 1 second.
Okay.
Professionally, I just told you that I had a client that was running for U.S. Congress.
I must have blanked out on that part because I didn't hear the Congress part.
U.S. Congress. Mm-hmm. I have been offered when she wins the position of communication director, which would have me communicating from 2018 to 2021.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Dude,
so
you can announce her and say her name too, Travis. I mean, I know who she is.
I know you know. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
But yes. I mean, what you're saying is that I am going to have to change the way that I communicate to some degree and make it more powerful and more succinct.
Less with more. More with less.
More with less. Yeah. From 2018 to 2021. 18, 19, 20, 20. That's 4 years. She would be up for re-election in 2021 to be serving as Congresswoman for 2022. So, again, damn you.
I think this is going to happen. I think this is really going to happen given all the other aspects in your chart and the windfall and, the sudden change.
Ironically, you're not the first person with other abilities, I will use those in quotation marks, to say that. Mm-hmm. She has been reaffirmed over and over again she is going to win. She's going to take the congressional race. And we were talking about the promotion and things like that will take place after the first of the year once the funding is in place.
Nice.
Well, Cindy, I may be looking for a new co-host then. Yeah, he won't have time.
No. So yeah, it'll be Wendy and Cindy. It'll be the Wendy Cindy show.
My mom's name is Cindy, so don't say that. Okay?
Oh, yeah. That's just bad. Sorry.
No, actually, that's cool. It's fine.
Okay. Anything else?
Not to sound pretentious, but I'd like to kind of congratulate you ahead of time with that. It does look like it looks very possible you're going to get that position. Can I ask you what state this would take you to, if anywhere? outside of where you are now?
No, it would keep me in Virginia. I live in Virginia. I work in Kentucky. The congressional candidate is in Virginia. It would take me 10 hours north of where I live in Virginia, because Virginia is a big effing state.
Yeah.
But I would still be within Virginia.
Okay, so you're astrologically still good within Virginia, I see.
Apparently.
No, I mean,
Because
looking at your astro maps, I see that you don't have anything that would,
Because ironically, I have tried to move out of Virginia, physically move out of Virginia on several occasions, and I always get brought back. Always.
That's interesting. It would be, I'd have to use, different software to see if you have some kind of Saturnian influence there, because Saturn tends to do that, pull you back. And sometimes Pluto does that too. But they do it for different reasons. But I don't see that just looking at your, looking at ley lines.
Maybe I just screw up when I get out of Virginia. I don't know. But I always, literally, I've lived in D.C., I lived in Colorado, West Virginia, and always brought back to Virginia. And always brought back to my hometown. Always.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Neither do I. In all honesty, I don't know. I mean, I always get brought back there. I don't know.
Well, where in Colorado were you, out of curiosity? Because I see you have a Neptune on the ascendant going through part of that state.
Denver and Colorado Springs.
Okay, so good. You would have had, I don't know if it doesn't matter if marijuana was legal at the time or not that you were there, but you would have had some pretty transcendental experiences.
It was transcendental. It was definitely transcendental. But yes, Denver. It was 2000. Let's see. Hang on. 2008 through 2009. So about a 6-month window. December 2008 to end of June, 1st of July 2009.
So that would have been really spiritual, kind of hazy. You would have met. Did you get involved in the music scene at all, and like attending a lot of?
No, I did not.
But after a while, you would have just said, "You know what? This is a little too hazy for me. A little bit too. You need more solid focus." So you would have been like, "I've gotten enough of lifetime's worth of that," and you would have kind of felt maybe the people were not as definitely not as intense as you need them to be. But you may have felt that they were not as forthcoming as you would prefer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And that's all the Neptunian influence there. And at first you would have really looked at it idyllically and thought, wow, I really like this place. I enjoy the energy. But then it would have gotten old probably within 3 months in, where
about
you would have been like, I got to climb my way out of the slump.
About 30 days. What wasn't
30
even
days.
Yeah, about
That's
30
pretty
days.
quick.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
What's your experience with Memphis? Because you have a really good line going through there.
That's extremely bizarre. I've only been to Memphis one time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the summer of 2012. I was there with a client. Did a very severe media circus, TV, radio, newspaper interviews. However, ironically, I'm a huge Elvis fan. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's, and actually did for the first time in my life actually tour Graceland. But I did have an actual really, really good experience while I was, everything that took place when I was in Memphis was very, very rock solid and was very, very positive. Professionally, personally, everything was just good that time when I was there.
Well, see, you have a Venus on your ascendant, the Venus coming up on the horizon at that at that area. So what that does is it provides value and heightened sense of aesthetics. It would have placed you in touch with the things in life that bring happiness and mirth in general. There is a sense of being able to, a little bit possibly of an artistic side if you were there long enough, but generally you would have been well received and you would have gotten along with everybody pretty well. And kind of felt like you were within your tribe in some ways.
I did. I was there for about, honestly, not a very long period of time in an astrological sense, about a week and a half. But was very well received. Bourbon Street, the tourist thing, yes, but it wasn't the tourist thing. It was just being and belonging, just walking, talking, interacting with people. Bourbon Street was one type of interaction, but honestly, when I think of Memphis, besides Graceland, and Graceland was an awesome experience for me because, like I said, I am a huge Elvis fan. The Civil Rights Museum in Memphis was, for me, probably one of the most powerful, spiritual, emotional experiences that I've ever dealt with. I honestly walked out of there physically and emotionally drained.
Wow.
It was, touring where, and this was on the tail end of just a few months before, having come from Dallas and done the JFK tour, and then going to Memphis and doing the Martin Luther King Jr. and going where he was shot, and then going to the museum, and then touring all of the buses that had been burned, and the photographs of the hanging bodies, and just it really is. It was one of those things that you really can't even begin to prepare someone for when they go to the Civil Rights Museum. For what they're going, but that for me was a very, very powerful moment, and it was for the client that I was with at that particular time. But it also, in a very, very narcissistic and very, very strategic way, it played into what I was trying to do for that client. But
was your client female, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good. That would have helped you score. I mean, not just in the traditional sense, but it would have helped you score just in general with hitting the home run with where you need to go with that client.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I hope she doesn't listen.
Me too, and I really don't think she does.
Good.
I really don't think she does. So,
have you ever felt that kind of cringeworthy moment or that kind of movement when you hear about what happens in Flint?
Yes.
Michigan? Okay, because you have the Venus line going over there too, so I do see a lot of sympathy of you just kind of looking at it as an outrage.
I do. I think the entire fiasco of Flint is an outrage. I think more people should be outraged about what's going on there.
Yeah. And do you have any connections at all, or have you had any experiences in Fort Wayne, Illinois?
Fort Wayne, no. How close is that to Evansville, Indiana?
I'm not sure, but I think Evansville is a little bit closer to Indianapolis, correct?
Yeah, it is. I was attending theological seminary in Evansville. Fort Wayne, Illinois, none. Actually, how close is Fort Wayne to Chicago? I've been to Chicago several times.
Chicago has different energies. And closer to Indianapolis, you would have had this would have been quite a surge of different energies, because you would have had Pluto on the midheaven, Venus on the ascendant, and possibly, I'm not sure where Fort Wayne is, east or west of Indianapolis, but not Fort Wayne, sorry, Evansville. I think it's more west, but you would have had Jupiter possibly involved. But just looking at Pluto and Venus, you would have found yourself having a little bit of mixed emotions at the time. Probably what was going on was you might have felt a bit of a sweeping change with your professional life with your regard to your role in this world, and feeling a bit of a deep urge to have a sense of power or a sense of being able to speak up against what you feel might not be right. So that might have been one of your first turns with your beliefs and your ideas of feeling like, all right, some of this makes sense to me, but it doesn't quite sit right. And you almost wanting to speak up, but just being polite about it in general. But with your Pluto line there, especially if this is related at all to what your career was, that especially in theology, I could have seen that being one of the first times where you could look back and say, well, that was definitely a turning point in my life, as far as where my beliefs stood and how I changed. Does that make sense?
It does, but I honestly don't know when that would have happened. That's the first time tonight that you've thrown me off a little bit. All of my experiences in Illinois and Indiana have been professional on the other side. It's been media.
Okay, with media, that would have been a bit more favorable. If it's about theology, I would have said, that would have been more of a life-changing experience. I'm just going to say this straight out. If you're ever in Indianapolis, you might have really hot sex there. So, but, once in a lifetime type of, whoa, mind-changing. Up to you whether you want to go there. Maybe you could go there for your Uranus half return and meet that 27-year-old that you have a short-lived relationship with.
Okay.
Because his heart gives out right at the end.
Hey, that's not nice. So, okay, let's talk Indianapolis for a moment. Okay. I do have, in the past year, there was a personal attachment to Indianapolis. Someone that was living in Indianapolis, from someone that was in my life from January of this year until July of this year.
Okay. Well, high five and congratulations. I hope it was very good and very deep. But it was one of those things where generally, especially looking with your chart placements, it just would have been a bit too much to where if it fizzled out, that would have been the best you could hope for. But usually it would have been one of those, smack right into it and smack right as hard out of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I would not recommend that more than once in a lifetime. To be honest with you, that's
no.
That's a lot okay. of energy there.
I'm okay with that. I'm just saying, you were mentioning, Fort Wayne, and you said it was close to Indianapolis. That was what made me ask the question about Indianapolis.
Oh, because with Indianapolis, you get the Pluto and Venus crossing there. So that's where I'm talking about with the intense personal encounters, so to speak.
Yes, there was actually someone from my past who had grown up in the same town that I was from, but had moved there, and then we reconnected.
Okay. And that could be the Venus connection. Well, what kind of questions do you have for me? What kind of things that you might be curious about that I could possibly answer through your chart?
Honestly, right now, I am just dumbfounded. Because, like I said, this is my first time doing this. I actually need some time to process what you were able to do.
Well, I'm happy it's recorded, and I hope just through the first pass that this has blown your mind already.
It has, and I will replay this and listen and have many questions, I'm sure. and we'll have you do this again as well. I will become a client, Casey.
What I will say is that if you get the job, when you get the job, with the Congresswoman, I do want you to let me know about that, because
I will.
That is definitely a landmark moment, and I will let you know I'm available for relocation if you need a personal astrologer, if she needs one.
I appreciate that. Ironically, she has many of the same talents and powers that you do. She is an empath, and she reads. Not something that we talk about, which is why I'm not mentioning her by name. It's not exactly something that you want to know about the congressperson that you're voting for.
She's it's an ancestor-based.
It
thing,
is,
right? Yeah.
It is. But it's familial for her. Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So, okay, I can honestly say that this has been the most interesting and self-edifying episode of Mystic Moon Cafe that I've been part of in 4 years, because that's how long ago I started doing shows with Wendy. So this is, and I apologize for monopolizing the last hour of the show.
Oh, you're fine. It's what you were supposed to do.
I felt it was important, since we were doing this and talking about it, and Wendy had it done. And everybody knows I don't mind doing it even on the air. So, thank you for doing it. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the pleasure. Thank you for being open and for the opportunity. And this has been quite enjoyable. I'm happy you've had me back, because I know in radio, generally, you know, when you have somebody that's lined up and they suddenly are not making it, that, you know, it's kind of like being the host and not showing up for the show sometimes too. It's just not a good thing. So thank you for being understanding and accommodating despite the situation I was in.
It is understandable and extremely forgivable as far as I am.
Oh God,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's one of those monumental, really
exactly.
good excuses.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, oh, damn it, my Volvo wouldn't crank and I couldn't get to the studio. It's like, oh, wow, you know, how do you solve a problem like Maria? You don't. You just let that shit happen.
You just survive it.
Exactly. We will have you back on. Honestly, if we could get you back on before the end of the year or around the new year, I think that would be a very interesting time to have you on talking about the... You mentioned New Year's resolutions. No, I don't do them because I think they're a cliche.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do believe in reevaluating and changing your perspective and your perception of the year based on previous experiences.
Yeah.
And so I think if we could have you back on before or right around the end of the year, that would be amazing. Even more so now that I've actually experienced a reading.
Sounds good to me. I would look forward to that.
We would love that.
Likewise.
And Wendy has a great song because she is an amazing song picker program director. She has a great song to take us out.
Woohoo.
Well, I think maybe we'll play Jennifer B. in the Groove's Mississippi Queen, if that's okay.
That works.
Okie dokie. Alrighty then. Everybody?
Next Wednesday, 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern. I'm sorry, I do it Eastern. I'm sorry, it's 8 for all you Missourians.
Misery loves company.
My pleasure. I look forward to it. And
great.
We will have you back on. Thank you so much, Casey.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Oh, Mississippi.
my brother.
Thank you for joining us tonight. You've been listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. Join us every Wednesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. On behalf of Wendy Schindler, this is Travis Short saying have a great rest of your week.